I'm gonna be adding questions or answering questions from the active QLA mentees. I was somewhat surprised of all the ones that we contacted. Only 70% responded positively, that a little over 70%, that they would be interested in giving me questions and or just participating and being able to listen to the webinar, i.e. we're doing this. My educated guess is probably as good as anybody's on the planet, notwithstanding my successful track record of calling so many things that have happened and come to fruition. But I get no joy out of being right about the tsunami. I said it the first day of the shutdown seminar that we had here a few weeks ago. I get no joy of being correct because I know it's displaced a lot of human beings. A lot of people will never recover from this. There's going to be bankruptcies. There's going to be awful things. People are going to go without food. That's just life. That's part of life. But I said, if I had to wish for three things from Allah, I would have wished for Trump as president. We got that, right? I would have wished for low interest rates. We got that. And I would wish for a calamity of chaos, that from chaos comes order, and by Allah's will, we fucking got that. This is the perfect motherfucking time. I've lived through one of these. I know what I'm talking about. We went the fastest growing energy company during the great oil decline of the early mid 80s by accident. I was always looking for money and I was always looking for deals, and we were one of the only energy companies that had plenty of money for CapEx, plenty of money for exploration. And that's when I enlisted the Mexican government, the Japanese government, the Kuwaiti government, to name three, to be our benefactor, so to speak. But I just kept on buying deals, and by the grace of God, the biggest deal that I made in those days was right at the bottom of the market, before the market turned, at $8 oil. Oil went down to about $6 and then rebounded up to 14, 18, 20, 24, and then the rest is history. Now this is 35 years ago, or 30 plus years ago, and you got to keep buying. There's a saying in the drilling business, the oil business: we're going to drill our way out of this motherfucker. Let's rotate to the right. Rotate to the right means that's the way the drill bit goes, to the right. And all I can tell you is just keep pulling the trigger. And I hadn't figured out seller finance like I know it now back in the day. If I had understood seller finance better back in the day, I would have made 5 times more acquisitions, is an exaggeration. But I at least would have made 2 or 3 times more acquisitions. And that's how I took $800 and turned it into about $500 million. You got the opportunity here, kids. Everything I answered, I'm about to answer now, is directly or indirectly answered on YouTube or during the seminar or on one of the slides or one of the templates. Contrary to what some people think, as I said at the one-day seminar on January 18th, earlier this year, even the templates are online if you look hard enough. It's quite remarkable. This is our time. If we don't take advantage of this, as I've asked many times, what are you going to tell your kids and grandkids 20, 25 years from now that you did before it was the greatest transformation of wealth since World War II, arguably in the history of the world. But now it's the greatest dislocation of wealth. It's not a transformation, it's a dislocation. And you are poised. Now, everybody that is getting these answers to these questions I'm about to do has been to the seminar. Some of you have been to the seminar more than once. Some of you have been to the seminar 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Some of you that are going to listen to the answer to these questions have been to the hardcore. But all of you have been privy to the seminar in one form or another. And you've had access to, slides and the library on my site. This is the time to use it. You got more downtime now. You got more downtime because you can't travel. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't go to the show. You can't go out to dinner, etc., etc. I've already said sarcastically, I've gained 5 pounds during the lockdown so far because I'm eating more and drinking more. And even though I'm working out more in the gym, I obviously am eating more than I'm working out. But you've got time to hone your skills. People are taking Zoom calls and Skype calls that never would have answered your calls before because they have no other alternative. Remember, and I told you, when you're getting through the secretaries, the people that are guarding these potential owners, which are potential sellers to you, you are calling them about a potential joint venture. And that's how you get past the guard keepers of these guys and gals. You will kick yourself to death if you don't take advantage of this. Some of you kids are already taking advantage of it. The fact that we have acquisitions closing since the corona thing started and since the lockdown started, more or less the worldwide lockdown, we've had deals close. And virtually all the deals, with save one or two, have renegotiated the prices or made part of the prices that they're willing to pay contingent on what the business does going down the road. That's the only way you can do this, and that way you can suck this potential seller into the vortex where they feel that they're going to somehow get part of the upside, and they're falling for it. And I don't mean that you're conning them. They are they're all afraid. Most of you that are going to listen to this are afraid. But that's what separates you from the other guys. The fact that you have and even though I say there's no real special sauce, the fact that you have access to me directly or indirectly, that is a special sauce that a lot of the kids don't have because they haven't been to the seminar. But you should benefit from the seminar and the money you paid. I feel a responsibility. I don't know if it's a moral responsibility, but I feel a responsibility to help you guys more than I help all the others, although I'm convinced now from Brian QLA Rose, from Bruce Whipple, from Dan Locke, amongst others, that I, have touched millions of people. And that I know pretty matter-of-factly that we've created at least a million millionaires, which is $1 trillion, and we've created a lot more with the $500 billion deal, the NEOM, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have access to this. Now, if you go, and God forbid lockdown lasts till, let's say, September, and you haven't taken that time, the effort, made the effort, the sacrifice to move this forward, I mean, you deserve what you're going to get. And you'll get fuck all because you didn't put this stuff into practice. I remember very, very vividly me sitting at this desk, in this room, in this castle, on this 156-acre estate during the collapse, and never leaving here, except for meetings. Occasionally we had meetings here during those years. But you will just pound yourself to death for not taking advantage. Now, whether we do another Q&A, I'm not sure. I'm going to see what I see the results of this Q&A. We're working on something special. We haven't figured out the title for it. I said sarcastically, we're a COVID-19 mercy fuck present to everybody, not just you, but everybody that follows QLA. But we're still working on it, and that will come out in the weeks to come. Ideally, we have a seminar supposedly for early June planned, but I doubtful it will happen. although we're set up, if they increase the spacing from 2 to 50 again, we can, because we're situated here, we can sleep 24, 25 people individually. We can feed them at the table separated, and we can have them seated separated. I personally like having the seminar in the pavilion. It keeps all you fucking meatheads out of the castle so you don't steal the silver. I say tongue in cheek. So I'm doubtful that the June seminar will happen. Hopeful, but I don't think it'll happen. And then if it doesn't happen, then we're hopeful that one in July will happen. But there may not be any seminars for 6 months. Okay? And so we're going to have to come up with creative ways to produce content that is meaningful for you guys and gals to watch. I say again, healthcare and IT, you stay along, because one of the things that's going to be a benefactor of this, other than people are going to be more interested in their health, is that the people are going to be more internet oriented. They're going to be internet oriented, and you can short everything else. You can short everything else. Don't be trying to pick the bottom of the market. Start the negotiation now. And remember, due diligence is a euphemism for knocking the price down. Now, one of the questions that I wasn't asked by you fucking, although I've gone through the questions, I'm going to answer. Now, nobody asked me in the questions I'm about to answer, because I've gone through them at least 4 or 5 times, is how do we perform due diligence during the lockdown? That's a good fucking question, and not one of you cocksuckers asked me. Not one of you. But this is going to be a time that the due diligence can still take place, but maybe only one person, and separation. But if you can't fly, I mean, it adds another layer. But I'm not telling you to buy assets sight unseen. This is a time to use your 150, 200, 250 years of experience from your board members. This is the time that you ride these guys and you ask them for experience. And I'm on a few boards and I see how they react, and they're pretty fucking smart. If you ask them. If you don't ask them, they're not so smart. Or at least you can't see how smart they are because you haven't asked them. But this is affecting all of us. The rumors of me coming back into the acquisition business are highly exaggerated. I have no intention of doing that, because then I'm competing with you. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to be investing in any stock markets or anything like that. I'm saddened that I wasn't able to attend the Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway board annual meeting in a few weeks, although we bought a little Berkshire Hathaway stock so we could be in attendance. I'm wishing him good health so he can do it again in 2021. But okay, now listen carefully to the questions, and I look forward to seeing you, as they say, on the other side. Let's get started. Thank you. So here we go. I've got 2 healthcare deals in due diligence, but we haven't yet completed. Should I renegotiate the price? If so, when? I'm going to make a few comments based on this one question. Number one, as I pointed out in the most recent tapes of the seminar and which have been published on YouTube, all deals since not just Corona started, but actually this year are probably worth between 25 and 50% less because it's a new world, it's a new environment, and some of the deals are worth nothing. And a few of the deals, a small percentage of the deals are actually, they should pay you to take them off your hands. So the answer is yes, you should renegotiate the price. And when we get on to answering it, how do we value them? You value them differently, because they're probably, if you look at the last 30 days, there's probably little or no cash flow. But we'll get into those questions as we go on. Lots of companies are going through a distress of financial turmoil. Who do you approach for capital to establish a buyout turnaround fund that we can acquire these businesses? You're not, okay? Any buyout turnaround fund is already in existence, or if they're going to start a buyout turnaround fund, they don't need you, okay? And whether you can acquire them for pennies on the dollar is questionable. But if you don't have a qualified board And the person that asked this question, who attended the seminar 2 or 3 years ago, should know better than this. But there's a lot of disruption, but everything's worth less. How do you organize your board meetings right now? All meetings switch to Zoom. Well, that's just it. You're having virtual meetings. You're not having in-person meetings. Hopefully, as time goes on, you'll be able to get together more than 2 people. The primary reason that the seminar from March was shut down by the police in the beginning of the second day was that we were having more than 2 people, and when the more than 2 people guideline came out, we were shut down, even though we were spaced and we were following all the hygiene things. But it's going to be by Zoom call. But they shouldn't be postponed. They may be delayed a little. Which markets do you think emerge once the crisis is over? Well, the biggest beneficiary of the coronavirus is healthcare. Healthcare, telco, which is now morphed into internet and which is now morphed into the cloud, etc. I said on a post on social media a couple 3 days ago, I said you'd be long healthcare and tech and short the rest of the market. I'm going to say that again slow. Long healthcare and technology and short the rest of the market. Technology isn't going to be affected, and even though healthcare is affected, it's been affected not just in a bad way, but in a good way, because unfortunately people are going to be getting sick. There's going to be more people in rest homes. There's going to be more people in home health. It'll be different though. They're going to be, those patients are going to be treated differently, but healthcare is still the place to go. If Rick Scott started over today, obviously he would be more successful sooner in the current financial environment. Would Rick follow QLA exactly? Yes, he would. He would do exactly the same thing, except he would do it quicker. What has fundamentally changed in QLA post-virus? Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is that it warrants a motivated seller even more so. Towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and as I talked at the one-day seminar in January in London, which in hindsight was a blessing that we got that away, is that motivated sellers are primarily why QLA is stronger now in this environment. Plus, as I've said all along, it eliminates commercial banks or whatever financial institutions you were going to use. What discount factor or percentage should be applied to forecast a break-even or worst-case scenario? Well, no, there is no discount factor. I'm just telling you, if you paid $1 million for something in the last 8 weeks, it's probably worth between $750,000 and is down to $500,000, or it may not be worth anything. And that's why the higher the percentage for motivated seller of the transaction, the better off you are. How has getting the money changed in the current times? Same approach? Yes, except it takes more calls. I've been asked directly or indirectly on social media when I posted a comment maybe a week ago. As most of you know, a vast majority of my net worth was made in a collapsing market when oil went from $41 and change down to $6 or $7 a barrel. And what it takes is QLA, but more calls. Now, you've heard me say that I used to make 6+ presentations a day. Well, the reason I was making 6+ presentations a day, the primary reason is because the market was collapsing and I was having to see more people, talk to more people. Now, this is pre-internet, so I didn't have the benefit of Skype and Zoom, etc. But I did have the benefit of shoe leather, as Bruce Whipple would say. And so the only thing that's really changed is it's even more a game of numbers. Where the corona-related downturn presents an opportunity for buyers with cash. Cash is king again. Cash has always been king. It's not king again. But for those of us with no cash, is there anything in the stimulus package? I'm not familiar with the stimulus package, although almost everybody, I think there's 135 or 140 million people in America that are eligible for the stimulus package. And you have to check, but as I understand it, the SBA is more interested in keeping businesses alive than funding new businesses. So it's easier to do this with a bank that is SBA approved, if you will, that has already had a relationship with you. It's not impossible, but it's just harder. As far as the rest of the question, but for those of us who don't know cash, is there anything, blah, 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 where would we find the 20% needed for a first deal? You don't need 20% for the first deal. You don't need, okay? The SBA says equity. It doesn't say your equity. Some banks will still take seller finance as equity. What you should be doing right now, take a deep breath and double your output. If you're making 20 calls a day before, you ought to be making 40 or 50 calls a day. Other than fulfilling PPE shortages, how can government contractors position themselves to thrive amidst the COVID? Okay. Not any way that I have figured out yet. Of course, it's early days, but the government contracts that are reference the COVID-19 are going to be priority items, i.e. masks, surgical gowns, gloves, etc. Which niches to focus on right now? Industries that flourish. We know healthcare. We know all that. Versus industries that will probably rebound. I'm not focusing on the industries that might rebound because we don't know when they're going to rebound. Okay. Remember, it's as soon as humanly possible. We want you to be doing deals. And although I'm sure in some format, booze cruising is going to rebound. Now, we've canceled 2 cruises for my 75th birthday coming up in a few months. I might have exaggerated when I said that we're going to be able to buy cruise lines for scrap iron value. But cruising has changed. Are you ever going to want to sit in a dining room of 500 people on a boat? 6 at a table? Probably not again. But we'll get into the other things like movie theaters, etc. So there are things like retail, construction, with some blowhard on real estate magnate in New York City said this was going to be good for commercial real estate in New York. Because he's telling you, because now, let's say that you had 100,000 square feet in a building, Manhattan, downtown Manhattan. And let's say that you had 5,000 employees in that. Okay? Well, now you're probably going to be able to get 2,000 employees or maximum 3,000 employees in the same space. Now, he contends that you will just buy more real estate and build more buildings. Well, that's bullshit. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the model is going to be towards working at home. Now, I'm not a believer of working at home. I would rather have you all under one roof. That's my experience of 50 years. And of course, I'm slightly biased because I was in Asia almost 15 years, and I don't believe in them working from home. But certain industries won't rebound at all, and we'll get into those later on in the questions. What multiples are okay to pay? There's no multiples that are okay to pay. Okay? We used to say 3 to 6 times cash flow, 3 to 6 times EBITDA. Now it's maybe 1 to 2 times. What should the earnout be as a percentage? There is no percentage of earnout. Right now, you want as much as humanly possible in seller's finance. Should we adjust the deal structure size? Of course you should. Do you think the financial and banking system is breaking down at the moment because of too much debt? No. Now, I was crying about a tsunami since last year, actually before last year. I didn't think it would come in the form of a virus from China. I thought it would come in form of the national debt in the U.S. Bubble bursting or some other. But the banks are in pretty good shape. The big banks are in pretty good shape. The stress tests that they've had to go through since 2008, 2009 has made them get stronger. But I would say the smaller banks, the regional banks, are the banks that are going to suffer. The bank that is in bumfuck Kansas that's banking to farmers without the stimulus package, a lot of those banks are going to go out of business. What opportunities are those for online net scum with no money? For my way of thinking, not many that aren't scams. There's a lot of new scams, COVID-19 scams. I'm not familiar with those. You probably understand them better than I do. But as I told a Hall of Famer yesterday, when he came up with an idea for a new platform for something online, and I said, one deal. First, two questions. I said, how long is it going to take you to make $1 million? He didn't answer that. And then the second question I asked him was, how many deals does it take you to make $1 million doing a QLA roll-up? Normally, you're a short millionaire off your first deal. I rest my case. What would be the adjusted multiples for valuation for cybersecurity under the current financial conditions? They're bid up, whereas we're buying businesses 3 to 6 times cash flow. The cybersecurity stuff is already selling at 10, 12, 15 times cash flow. But they're not going to be bid up. I mean, they're going to come down, but they're not going to come down to the 3 to 5. Cybersecurity conditions, if there are alternatives or acquisition candidates that have government-backed contracts will be at the higher end of the continuum. Those that don't have government contracts will be at the lower end of the continuum, if at all. At present, we see a combination of bank crisis, economic crisis, that's financial and real economy, and excessive scary news business. This should cause a crisis we have never experienced before. Yeah, that goes without saying, kid. What are the success parameters to overcome and benefit from the mega crisis for individual company national? The same thing that I've been telling you for almost 27 years, the same thing I've been really emphasizing the last couple of years, and the same thing that I emphasized at the one-day seminar. Again, we were fortunate to get it away. And the seminar in February is that the motivated sellers across the economy, both individual company, are going to be the ones that that bring us out of this crisis. And there are no success parameters other than if free cash flow, doesn't cover debt service, and there is a combination of that with seller finance, it's not going to work. But now the banks are saying, instead of saying they'll take it 1.15 or 1.25 times debt service, they're going to want to see 1.5, 2 times. I had a deal fall out of bed last week that was 1.67 time, even at a reduced price, is 1.67 debt service was covered by cash flow, and the bank pulled away. The banks are going to want 2 times, probably in my judgment. Dan, I understand there will be blood bath for, this is very true. This is from a guy that's on his way to the Hall of Fame. He's a pendejo Mexican, which I'm not going to say his name, already successful. Dan, I understand there will be a bloodbath for malls, small retail, real estate, large office space, retail strips, large box space, hotels, motels, etc. All true, all the above. But also, dentists, chiropractors, massage parlors, tanning places. The retail business is dead. I mean, I just saw a big delivery here from Booker, which is a big PLC wholesale that delivers food, etc., which I was unsuccessful in a hostile takeover about 20 years ago. Deliver stacks of stuff this big. Okay, we're going to get more and more stuff delivered. The retail is dead. Now he asked. He thinks affordable housing apartments will be strong in Q1 of 2021. This is the Los Angeles area. We'll still have a huge shortage of affordable housing in Los Angeles, and it's way too expensive and risky to build new apartments. I agree. Should I stick to my core strategy of purchasing apartment buildings from distressed baby boomers using seller finance and JVs? And the answer is yes. What would you buy today that you would be excited to own in a year's time? What deals are the most? I wouldn't be excited to own anything. They laughed that Sally and I have been in cash for 20 years. They laughed that we have been with no real estate, no stocks, bonds, etc. for the better part of 15 years. Now you know why Warren Buffett's sitting on $130 billion in cash. why Google, etc., Facebook are all sitting on tens of billions in cash for time like this. You've also seen that so far the big guys with all the cash positions haven't committed their cash, because in my judgment it's going to get worse. I also wrote about that if we follow the 1918 virus that hit the world, when there was and that's how my grandfather passed away. My father's father died in that epidemic. And we were fighting World War I, you have to remember, at the same time. There were about 1.5 billion people on the earth 100 years ago. 500 million of them got infected. 500 million. Between 50 and 100 million died. Okay. Now, we didn't have all the things we have to stop it and curtail it. But I'm not excited about anything other than healthcare and government contracts. Which industries will be ripe for the consolidation? I'd say in healthcare. There will be a shit ton of seller finance opportunities now and for a while. Will government subsidized businesses be the most viable for potential ensuring stable revenue? The government's going to subsidize all businesses that are already owned, so it doesn't really, you don't have to really differentiate too much. How do we give comfort to sellers that we can provide payment? What payment terms would be the best to suit us? What pitfalls should we look out for? And what is the best industries to consider? Again, I'm telling you, if it's not healthcare or financial tech, or technology, short it. That's what your dream teams are for. Your dream teams will have been through, with 150, 200 years of experience. They will have been through something like this. They would have been through the crash of '87. They would have been through, like I've been through 7 recessions myself. But it's payment terms based on existing cash flow, and the payment terms have to be adjusted. If the cash flow dries up, then that means the payment terms have to dry up. Okay. My industry has about 10,000 for-profit businesses and about 25,000 non-profit. Since my industry is tech, health, does it matter which type of business? Yes. Don't bother with non-profit. It has been shrinking, blah, 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 blah. But in the crisis, it has become an essential fucking business again. Okay. And the best way to buy single proprietorships. Single proprietorships are hard because they're all closed down now. They're all going to be worth less, 50, 75%. Where do you go to find the deals that are what banks love to see, with over 20 million in revenue? I've talked to bankers and they want bigger deals. Of course they want bigger deals because it's easier for them to get the stimulus money out. Yesterday or the day before, Bank of America announced, I believe they had 175,000 loans that equaled 32 or 33 billion dollars. That's one bank in one day. The whole total stimulus is only 35 billion for that portion of the banking industry. So they want whales, but they're going to put people at the front of the line that are already in business, as I said before. How will lenders value a business now it has been temporarily closed and it has lost income? It hasn't lost income. In most cases, the income is dried up 100%. Well, they're going to look at historical numbers, which mean nothing. Again, it'll be harder to get banks to approve brand new deals that haven't been run by you. They're going to make priority the companies that are trying to stay in business, which isn't you. And unless you have a great portion of the deal based on seller finance, it's going to be very difficult to get it done. What businesses have the highest chance of staying as remote businesses? I'm not sure what you mean by remote, but the businesses that for example, Uber, which was not a good business because it's in the delivery business, but the Uber drivers don't make enough money, and Uber and all the just like taxi cabs is a dead business. Do you want to sit in a car with a guy you don't know if he's been infected or he's been around infected people? Virtually all the business, not all, almost all the business models that we know are going to be hurt. And my guesstimation is take the worst case scenario from the pundits and double it vis-a-vis the time. People are saying maybe a year and a half. Well, I wish they didn't say that, because that probably means 2 or 3 years before we're back to some semblance of normal. But we're never going to go back to normal. Okay. When I said we were in the 11th year of a bull market, and a lot of the guys, the pundits that you listen to, said we're in a new. We're never going to have another bear market. Well, I said that they were full of shit, right? And they are full of shit. I didn't know it was going to be a pandemic that caused the market to retrace. But if we follow the footsteps of the 1918 pandemic, the market sold off a little less than 50%, which would bring us down to a Dow Jones. I know it's not the only indice, but it's the largest indice, of about in the 16,000s. We've gotten as low as in the 18,000s. We're back up to 21,000, I believe. And it took, a year and a half to get back to some sense of normalcy. How has this affected the QLA method? No, there's no extra layers other than more calls. What areas will be hot besides medical supply, cremations, home security? I don't think home security is going to be as hot, because people are going to be staying home more. So, why would you pay for something that you might not need? Again, crematoriums, cemeteries, etc., are part of the healthcare chain. How long do you predict bullshit lasts? I think it's going to last a couple of years. How is the economy and financial world going to change after the coronavirus? How long will it take for it to recover? I said that. What industries will go down? What percent of the U.S. businesses will close? Now, the Goldman Sachs says that GDP is going to go down in America 34% this quarter, second quarter of this year. Okay, they say it would recover to maybe 3 to 6% on the positive in the third quarter, and maybe back to 6 to 8% in the fourth quarter. If GDP goes down a third in this next 3 months, April, May, June, I don't see how it can bounce back that quickly. More than a third of the businesses are closed down. Virtually, nothing's open unless you're considered essential. Sally, I've posted, is doing sewing. Sally is making the beds. Sally is cleaning the toilets. Our staff, although we're paying them 100%, with a couple of exceptions of Asian employees that were trapped here because of the coronavirus, that are locked in here. I don't see anybody coming back anytime soon. And on another note, I don't see any seminars being given anytime soon, although we have approximately 3 seminars, full seminars paid up for people for a seminar that may or may not happen. What are the best industry to invest now? Healthcare. And by invest, I mean buy business as a roll-up. I don't mean invest money. Okay. What are the projections and timeline for economic turn? I already said about 18 months or 2 years. I wouldn't waste any time on anything other than healthcare and telco. How can banks be convinced to lend money in these days as they are restricting the lending? And I've already commented on that, but I'll say it again. They are going to be focusing on businesses to keep them in business, not starting new businesses. And if it wasn't for the government guarantee, they wouldn't do that. How can we take advantage of the situation while the banks do not give away? Well, then they never gave away money to new and existing customers, and seller finance does not help for highly motivated seller. Well, if you do not have a highly motivated seller now, you're never going to have one next. Most of the kids that I'm in contact with, my son included, our youngest son, they tell me that they're hearing from motivated sellers they talked to a year ago that are now motivated to sell. In America, what are the three most significant opportunities in the next 10 to 30 years within healthcare? Well, I mean, keeping guys like me alive, whatever is directly or indirectly supplementary or complementary to that. How do you calm down or create confidence in nervous investors with uncertainty in the marketplace? Well, you shouldn't be dealing with investors. You should be only dealing with motivated sellers. Most of you don't have the experience to calm them down, other than we will get through this. Historically, you can go back and look. We always get through it. Can you advise how can I adjust downwards equity allocated to the board members? No. I would close up the company and start again. It's not the board members' equity that's killing your deal. It's the lack of deals. Can social media and digital marketing be considered as telecom, therefore hot? I don't believe so. No. Digital marketing, perhaps. Best source of funds currently, it hasn't changed. Motivated sellers is the best source of funds. Specifically, what are the next steps President Trump will take? I believe he's almost over the fact that he was wrong, apparently, that this would be a short-lived deal and it wouldn't affect his re-election campaign. Remember I said several months ago, other than a black swan event, I thought going to war with Russia or something, the Democrats handing it the presidential election to President Trump on a platter, that nothing could faze him. His ratings are up to about over 50%, him acting like a wartime president, which this is war. So I would still expect him to get reelected. As far as the next steps, I don't see him nationalizing business, but he also took the step last week to invoke the Government Powers Act, whereas he can tell businesses alike during war that they have to make certain things, but he's going to stay focused on this. He doesn't want the airline business to go out of business. He doesn't want the oil business to go out of business. As you may recall, I predicted the oil crash. I didn't know it was going to be at the same time as the pandemic, but I have predicted most of these things. He will do everything humanly possible to keep those major industries from going out of business. But I don't agree with him and the action he's apparently going to take with the cruise lines. The cruise lines have been dodging taxes for decades. They're all based, most of them are based in tax havens. They don't pay taxes, yet they want the president to bail them out. With the current expected downturn in the economy and uncertainty of the future cash flow and gross margins, how much would you reduce the current negotiated price? I'd start half less. We have been reframing our sales pitch for corporate customers. We are installing commercial rooftop solar panel system with no upfront investment by saying now is the most important time to cut costs, become more efficient. You also have more time as external activities have been reduced. Now or never, don't wait. Let us save you money now. Question, what other message can we be communicating to push customers, bankers, funders, etc. to move now and not use the current government mad economic crisis as an excuse? That's a pretty good excuse. I mean, the crisis. But if anything, the cost of producing electricity, etc., if there's a lot fewer people participating, is going to not go down. It should go up. So you might use that the increased costs of energy for houses. Now, energy for gasoline to put in cars, etc., has gone down dramatically. We have acquired 4 companies in digital business, transformation strategy, services, over 100 people, Europe and Asia. Our current 3-month pipeline show only small effects from Corona, fairly good relationship with our bank. Current acquisition targets seem fairly stable, but how do we present the new acquisition targets to the bank when uncertainties? You're going to have to use a lot of seller finance, kid. Other than healthcare and the tech, you're safe in avoiding everything else. If Dan could expound upon this attached tweet of his, I agree with him, his tweet from April 1st. How did the author know Dean Koontz in 1981, a virus would devastate the world? I have no idea. One of my right-wing buddies from the military sent it to me. I had never heard of this guy, Koontz. But it's obviously had been written in the book 1981. And other than a couple of facts that are out of place, he's pretty damn accurate. So I really can't expand. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What industries will be the easiest, most difficult to roll? Well, the easiest is going to be healthcare. The most difficult to roll up are retail and things with small margins, which hasn't changed. Can Dan give us his view of markets and the businesses who will suffer and disappear? Well, a lot of businesses are going to disappear, okay? Why would you go to get your nails done now? Why would you go? I mean, even barbershop. I haven't had a haircut. I can't imagine if I don't get a haircut between now and, let's say, the fall, I'm going to go back to my hippie look with the hairs over my ears. There's a lot of things that just, we become used to having other people do it. I saw my wife doing her nails yesterday. The healthcare, telecom, and cybersecurity, artificial intelligence are still going to be hot. How would you deal with a capex heavy industry? I'd forget about it. I wouldn't bother with it. Is now the time to prepare for a reverse exit? I'm not sure what that means, a reverse exit, but it's still the time we don't buy anything unless we've got an exit plan. So we buy, acquire, roll up, exit, and continue to do that over and over again. In a down market, how does that change the way we value a business? Remember, it's worth 25 to 50% less. It may not be worth anything. But this is where you put the seller through seller finance at risk. In other words, okay, you did $1 million last year. If, let's just say, and you ask them for the number, well, I should still be able to do $500,000. Okay, if you do $500,000, this is the purchase price. Again, cash flow's got to cover debt service. If you do $750,000, and if you do more than you did last year, this is the price. You want to bring the seller into the risk equation, is what I'm trying to say. How far down are we going to go as far as the economy, and when do you think? I don't know. I don't pick bottoms. I'm better at picking tops, as you well know, Bitcoin, etc. But so far, the markets in general have gone down about a third, although there's been a lot of rebounding. I would expect that we're going to test those lows and go beyond them. Where does Mr. Pena currently see hot acquisition in oil and gas? I don't. I posted on the social media where Exxon and where the big Chevron, big companies have to have oil for them to continue on their budgets. I believe one was $50 a barrel, one was $70 a barrel. There's over 5,000 wells, both figuratively and literally underwater in the North Sea, at $30 Brent crude or whatever it is. They need, $50, $60, $70 Brent crude. How can we get access to aid money? Just call the various governments. If you're in Germany, the German government's got programs. United States government's got programs, etc. I've got 2 deals in the dental sector, one with an NHS contract, therefore cash flow backed by the government. That doesn't mean anything right now. Cash flow backed by the government is when the NHS isn't under pressure. The one which is a fully private practice, in some parts, not in the NHS, but some parts of the world, you go to jail if a dentist sees you. Which verticals are the best for a pivot and which should be avoided at all costs? I mean, I'd stay in healthcare or high-tech technology. Many businesses are currently temporarily closed due to the government guidelines. Even if the seller has become more motivated, how do we get... So you negotiate the deal for when it's going to open up. Most banks don't even have their branches open. What should be our expectation of how bank funding thresholds will change, and what's your best strategy? I can tell you, if you can substantiate cash flow being covered by debt service by 1.5, 2 times, you'll still be able to get deals done. Do you see the U.S. dollar devaluing? No. If anything, it's only going to get stronger. I've been told that as the deals get bigger, the less chance it has to close. I disagree with that. If I want to acquire a healthcare business within a year with high probability of closing, what is the first deal size? I'd still, when you're in the beginning of the QLA continuum, still 1, 2 million, then 2, 3, then 3, 4, then 4, 5, then 5, 8, then 8, 10. Technology trends like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, and remote work are changing the world. What is your prediction on how these trends would change the workplace? Well, you're going to have more people working from home, one, which means that people aren't going to be driving, or they're not going to be using, do you want to sit in a subway for an 1.5-hour commute? The answer is probably not. We're probably going to be, movie theaters. Are you going to want to sit next to anybody? Restaurants that seat 200 people that are now going to seat 75 to 100 people. I'm told by cooks and chefs, which I never thought of, are 2 chefs that are laid off right now with pay, that you can't have distancing in a cook in the kitchen. I hadn't really thought about that. But there's, most things you need to be close to. Some things you don't. In these unprecedented times, what are the best factors, financials, to consider regarding valuations? It's still cash flow. What aspects of business do you see not returning to the normal? My rough guess is we're going to lose between 25 and 35% of all existing businesses. There aren't going to be any more tanning salons. I don't believe. There aren't going to, it's easy to figure out. Has anything changed for QLA process? Any shift in focus away from debt towards more equity financing? No. If you think equity financing is going to save you, you go out and try, and then let me know how your program is working out. The COVID-19 virus moves in cycles. In a couple of weeks, we will reach the peak, hopefully. After that period, it will decrease, and thereafter, it will come back. Together with the fluctuations of the COVID-19 casualties, we can expect heavy fluctuations in revenue. That's correct. What percentage total consolidated revenue for 2019 do you suggest keeping in your holding company cash? As much as you can. If we have line of credit, are we at risk of losing the availability? You are, unless you draw it down. If you've noticed, all the big airlines, the cruises, the big companies are drawing their lines of credit down, and they're applying for more lines of credit. Remember I told you cash would be king, and it's better to draw down the lines of credit than see them evaporate? Now you know why. I'm looking at an aged care. Should I bail out? Should I bail on that to focus on the industry? What would be lucrative at this time? Care is still the place to be. What are the businesses and industries that will be impacted forever by the crisis? Almost all. You talked about everything related to leisure, travel, hospitality. Correct. How those will be after the crisis? In bad shape. Will we still be possible to do acquisition in those industries? Yes. As I've commented both on social media and in person, leisure, travel, and hospitality are changed forever. The obvious ones are cruise lines, but hotels. And people will still. If you think tourism from China to the rest of the world is going to be the same, or anything remotely the same, you're living in a dream world. Vice versa, if you think that tourism to China is going to be anywhere near the same, you're living in a dream world. That's not gonna happen. You're still gonna be able to do acquisitions, but I mean, the multiples are gonna be, much less. For example, the example I used to give, back in the 90s, to show the transition into computers, for those of you that remember the Smith Corona typewriter, when the IBM 360 typewriter came out, there was no more Smith Corona, and now there are no more typewriters. Now there are laptops, etc. For those of you that even want to go back even before that, the buggy whips, the buggy whip business went out of business when the cars, because there were no more horses to hit with the buggy whip. That's going to be, the case now. And there will be pundits that make millions writing books on where you should stay away from and where you shouldn't stay away from. No QLA need additional steps other than you have to have more calls. I used to get often asked, why were you making 6 or 8 presentations a day? Because I was not confined, but I was confined to the oil and gas business, which was collapsing. 10,000 oil and gas companies went out of business during the time that we grew at 55 million%. And nobody wanted to hear my story. So I just kept on making presentations and talking to people till I found somebody that was interested. During your March YouTube seminar video, you said that you were going to teach on the penultimate day how to do a deal in 48 hours. No, well, we didn't. In 48 hours, I was going to make 500 phone calls, and it's easy. So, I mean, there is no secret sauce. I get asked this all the time. There is no secret sauce other than fucking pulling the trigger. During the Black Swan event, should we source and intend to buy publicly traded companies? No. This is possibly one of the first times in history when owning almost any business, having employees and capital assets is a liability eating up cash and margin. Has this situation changed your view of buying businesses based on cash flow and multiples over the next year of heightened uncertainty? And is it better to buy these distressed businesses outright now at a discount, or come in as a lender of last resort with default takeover clauses? Well, unless you've got money as a lender of last resort, I should say, it's better to do a joint venture and or mostly seller finance. In March 2020 seminar, you mentioned tourism, leisure, food, retail, wholesale, fitness, dental practices as industries to avoid. Yes, I did. Is cosmetic surgery included in these categories? Yes. Will dense assisted living facilities be as dangerous? Yes, they will be. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that here in the last few days, a assisted living home in Glasgow, Scotland, they found 13 dead in a week. And they didn't test any of the people in the assisted living. The 2 of the current employees have been hospitalized with the corona. Apparently, I don't know if it's true, gave it to the 13 elderly people, all in their 80s and above, and they all died. Now, unfortunately, this hits home even more for me, because the assisted living was a Four Seasons assisted living, which Four Seasons was part of the famous deal that the Guthrie Group was instrumental in getting done, that we took a public company private. It was Glasgow based at that time, and our prayers are with all of the kids that have been affected by the corona. How long do you think the shutdown? I think the shutdown maybe 6 to 9 months, but it's going to affect us at least a year and a half. Will all industries be affected by the coronas and therefore be ripe for, yes. But there's certain industries, remember, that you should stay away from, the ones I've already mentioned. Which financial institutions are hot to approach now to lend money in the Netherlands to use the tsunami as a super success tool? All the banks, but the ones that are sponsoring or supporting government programs. Given the current situation, are there any changes with regards to securing finance visa banks for our deals? The banks are going to be slower to lend. They're going to be looking for a higher percentage for debt service to be covered by cash flow. I'm guessing that probably a minimum of 1.75 to 2 times. We are currently in the due diligence period to sell a division of our business. We felt we were setting a good deal. We were getting a good deal based on LOI. Buyers are getting their quality of earnings report shortly and will be sending over a contract. What changes should we expect from them? And what's acceptable in my view? Okay. Well, if they don't offer you significantly less, then they're brain dead. Okay. It depends how bad you want to get a hold of it, guys. But remember, cash is king. You mentioned how tech companies that were once impossible to purchase due to the astronomical multiples are now going to be open to start acquiring. What industries are now open to QLA model that were not previously? No, they were all susceptible, if you will, to the QLA model. Some were just more expensive, and you had to use more seller finance. So that hasn't changed. What were the general lending parameters of banks? They're not going to be any general lending parameters. The banks, if they're going to use a loan to value model, they're going to want 50% equity in the deal, which we can't do or won't do. What is the best way to use this downsize to minimize the loss of momentum in an industry that is currently closed and where the possibility of doing actual deals is slim to none? There's downtimes where you prospect, you make calls, you get people that are ready, you tune them up. What fundamentals have changed? Again, everything's the same other than you have to make more calls. I'm getting all the ones that got away phoning me now. I'm sure you are. Their increased motivation to sell is linked to their anticipated decrease of revenue and profit. The numbers will be much softer. And since no one has a crystal ball except me, you, Mr. Pena, thank you. Am I naive and still going balls deep into specialty construction niche that I'm in? My gut says go forth and rid the credit facilities and government backbones all the way to profit annihilation. Now, this kid I know, he had a small construction company, and now he's doing healthcare, and he wants to know whether he can go back into healthcare. He hasn't made a deal yet. He's got a dream team and all that stuff. Well, it depends if they're really motivated now, and if seller finance really works with them. As a lot of the companies have no or significant reduced revenue for the next 3 to 6 months, when do you think that there will be a significant increase? 12 months from now. A significant increase in the amount of motivated sellers. Well, they're motivated now, but they'll get more realistic vis-a-vis their price the longer the cutoff of cash flow lasts. Now or in a few months, people will realize the government incentive is not enough to keep the business going. Now, if it's anything like here in the United Kingdom, the government subsidies are only for a couple months. They're paying up to 80% of your employees' pay, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to last longer than 2 months. That's why the $2 trillion stimulus, for example, that has been allocated for the United States is probably a third to a fifth as much as it's going to have to be, because we're going to need a lot more than $2 trillion. What are the main changes? There are no changes other than more phone calls. What is the best way to play the oil market now? Dan, you're an oil guy. How far do you expect the price to fall? I already said that it would see below 40 before it saw 200. Now, we have, roughly speaking, 10 to 15 million barrels a day in excess of demand. Now, what are we going to do with those 10 or 15 million barrels? So, I mean, it's with fracking and increased overproduction. The oil business is in a hard place. It's between a rock and a hard place. Whether the Arabs and Russia come to an agreement, I have no idea. What is the best way to take advantage of this? The best way to take advantage of this is I'm not unless you can get 100% owner financing. I'm not in the business of thinking that you're going to make money in the oil business. There are certain funds in the oil business that are not, investment funds that are precluding any investment in oil or oil related now. I'm on my 5th day of a 21-day national lockdown in South Africa as a result of the COVID-19 virus. 90% of the industries are literally closed down. The country is locked down and all the traveling is restricted. There's a possibility of the lockdown being extended. I would be surprised if it's not extended. How do I ensure my acquisition program is not compromised? Because I was building momentum every day, generating pipeline. The only way that you're never going to be able to guarantee that it's not compromised 100%, but double your output vis-a-vis calls and connections. During the financial tsunami, which lending facilities will be desperate to lend, they're all going to be desperate to lend. Assuming the vaccine is out in 2021 and there is drugs that treat the infected by May, when will the recovery happen? It's my best guess. It's going to be two to three times longer than everybody's guessing, but it's going to be sometime in 2021. Hopefully sometime in 2021. Hello, Dan. During the $1 Trillion Man event, when asked how to man up, how to uncut yourself, your advice to the audience was to be as selfish and obnoxious as possible, both in private and public life. Stop caring about the feelings of other people who mean nothing to you, and put yourself first in all areas of your life. Do you still agree? Yes. Be more ruthless. But funny enough, you will think that you're taking advantage of these people, but you're not. You're taking advantage of the situation, not them. And if you're buying their business, if you don't buy their business with probably close to 100% seller finance, nobody's going to buy their business. And they're going to think you an asshole. So get over it. Should we keep negotiating or wait until the economy gets worse to take advantage? Start negotiating now. Lower price, What are healthcare verticals will benefit from the coronavirus? Almost all. I am 1.5 million euros in cash, liquid, sitting in the bank accounts right now. If Dan were in my shoes, I wouldn't invest the money anyplace. Keep your cash, sweetheart. Cash will be king, even more king in 6 months. How will a crisis affect the financial situations? What do you mean? Multiple banks and states in Europe are financially in financial trouble, yes. And what are the consequences when they fall? Also, the housing market is skyrocketing. Are the both bubbles? Well, the housing market has already been in collapse in America, the rich housing market, for the last 5 or 6 months. Hopefully, they won't both burst at the same time. What is it going to be? The COVID-19 impact on cybersecurity. The contracts will still be hot. So I would, other than it's going to reduce prices or the ratios that you have to pay for them. If Dan would still be on the battlefield, what businesses areas would Dan be active in or turn his attention to? Healthcare. Top industries you see with most riding the financial collapse, spoils of war, and top industries in the rebuild phase post collapse, healthcare. We're not in the turnaround business. Remember, we're not. We want things. Healthcare will resume. It's just going to resume different. I'm sure there are going to be individual businesses that pop up because of Corona. I don't know any of them right now, but there will be. With the economic changes, what are from now the industries that are the most in chaos and favorable Well, you say except telco and healthcare. There aren't any. When will the epidemic end? I wish I knew. I'm correct. You have stated that will probably last 18 months. That's correct. What are the reasons you believe the cruise industry is over? Why cruise ships will be available for 5 cents in a pound of scrap metal? I may have exaggerated the 5 cents a pound, but the cruise ships aren't going to be anywhere near as popular. You're not going to want to get on a boat with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people. And then, especially since some of the ports have refused to allow the people in. I mean, in port. No sales in the business. No sales in the business. No cash flow. Cannot repay the loans. All stock and sales points locked down due to COVID. I cannot repay the loans as cash flow dried out. What can I do? You have to get. You appeal to your lenders. To get respite off your loan payments. You appeal to your landlord for the same. You appeal to get money from the government. Now that I may be filing for bankruptcy on my business, the lenders will likely come after me personally, causing a personal bankruptcy also. How should I proceed with the banks and board if occurred? Well, for the thing that you've personally signed for, you're on the hook. But, I mean, the banks are supposed to be giving you special dispensation. You need to remind them of the government law. I don't think that the board will turn and run. They may turn and run, but none of your board members are personally liable. But you've got, and I know who wrote this, but I mean, the board that you put together was for new acquisitions, unless you're referring to a board that you have for your existing business, which I realize is in trouble. Advice for people in the middle of the bedpan roll-up. Renegotiate prices down. What should I take advantage of during recession chaos? Well, Janet Yellen, the former head of the Federal Reserve, was on television over the weekend. And she said they were talking to her about, is this a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, or an L-shaped? And she said that it's possible to have a V-shape, but she wasn't very optimistic about that. What she was concerned about is not having a depression. What opportunities do people working with schools, educational opportunities have? Education is the future, and rolling up small educational boutiques is a possibility. Where are we currently in the cycle of downturn in the market? We're only about 4 to 8 weeks into the downturn. When can we expect the most opportunities to come available business and real estate to buy? We are going to have opportunities for, I won't say years, but at least the rest of this year. And in my opinion, that's why the companies with the big cash hoards, including Warren Buffett, haven't committed any cash because things are going to get worse. I started a new job at such and such last week as a financial business analyst for a transport division of a USA company. My role there would be to develop budgets, manage sales reports, financial forecasts, and month-end reports, and later be in charge of the corporate development aspect of the entire unit. This is my first time doing this and don't have experience in the industry and working at CapEx, since the company I'm with now does not operate similarly. How can I become indispensable in today's environment based on what I just said and beyond being the first in the office and the last to leave? Come up with ideas how to for them to reduce their CapEx and not reduce their ROI. What the banks will do with someone many assets due to massive default loans, nationalization, socialism. Well, socialism certainly wouldn't be unless perhaps Bernie Sanders gets elected. But I doubt in America if they're going to nationalize any industries. How long will the Saudis flood the oil market? In Canada's oil gas market doom the record low prices currently, and the government trying to shut down the energy economy. Canada's in a hurt. They want to do away with the expensive oils, which Canada has a lot of them. What are the top 3 in the world countries for QLA this year? United Kingdom, USA, and Canada, probably. And Germany is a close 4th. What leading indicators are you paying attention to in order to make a determination about different businesses and industries? The markets are a leading indicator telling you what is going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months. But I look at all the indices. I look at the gold, silver, although I don't consider Bitcoin a leading industry. I look at the stock markets. I look at the bond markets. I look at them all. Okay, Mr. Pena, what do you think about convertible loans, and what would be preferred option and structure? Now, I don't want you to get regular debt, convertible loans. We have to get a bridge financing for about 20% for 3 deals, same geographic area, total combined 10 million euros. Current banking partners reduced commitment to 50% of the initial 80% of the purchase price. Now listen to this, meatheads. They originally had, the banks had said, and this is, I believe, Germany and Switzerland. They put up 80% of the purchase price. Now they've reduced it to 50, wanting more equity from us. Owners keep 20% equity per deal. Instead of buying 100% of the business, I'd only buy 70% of the business. My answer, I would aim to structure the loan in a way that the partners can convert this loan into maximum of 20%. You're getting too confusing. Okay. I can keep approximately 60% of the holding company. Great. Convertible loans were brought up by my chairman as a way to engage, etc., investors without giving them direct voting. I just would, I would confront the sellers that the deals change, the world's change, your deal's not worth as much. You've got to put up more seller finance at a reduced price. For myself and any QLA bots in assisted living, other than lower valuations because the market and industry is uncertain, how do we assisted living sector move forward? That's exactly it. Double the output. With countries pumping money to stimulate their economy, should we be calling on every bank to specifically capture these new stimulus funds and to finance the deals? Yes. And these automatically non-recourse. They're not non-recourse if you don't ask for non-recourse. What will the perspectives be of the banks at this point? Reducing their risk and getting more equity in their deals. They want the risk equation to be almost totally on you, not them. My understanding is that the banks are more liquid now. That's exactly true. They're more liquid now, but they also know that if they don't stay that way, they could be in trouble later on, depending on how long it lasts. Should I try acquire deals now? The banks and owners said to me I should wait. Some said 3 weeks. I'd start talking to the deals because the deals aren't going to get done. Remember, I did 15, 20 deals in a row during the collapsing market. By the time I got to the 3rd deal from the 1st deal, it was worth less. In some cases, I was able to go back and renegotiate lower prices. But normally the lower prices are part of the earnout and additional seller's equity, owner's equity. Do you think the banking system is likely to go down? No. What action would you take now and after the event? I don't expect it to go down. That doesn't mean it won't, but I don't expect it. How much extra debt should our business avail ourselves during this time, if any? Should we take on as much as possible and take part of it, part in all of the government subsidy schemes, incentives, even if we don't need it, and even if we can't be sure to repay it? Yes. Or does it depend on the type of debt? No. You want to get as much in your bank account and take the money out of the bank that lends it to you, or gives you a revolver, or gives you a line of credit, or an overdraft. Put it in another bank so they can't go back and just take it from you. What specific crisis-related action should we take now to gain advantage even after even far down the road when the crisis is over. Get as much money out of overdrafts and revolvers. Don't worry about paying the fees. Is the assisted living industry still good? Yes, it is. What do you do when you have lost all your savings and not been successful after trying QLA for a year in a place like India? I have now moved to the UK and taken up a job here. Start again. Healthcare. Sellers are really motivated now, but what we do with their brick and mortar business that have no clients. Remember, I didn't want you to buy the brick and mortar. Remember? That's why. Flotation seems not to be an option in the current market. You're correct. You sell to an industry. You can't sell off the brick and mortar. And I'm still haven't forgot our bet about burkas, because I know who you are. You said there will be entire industries eliminated from QLA model as a result of the current crisis. In a later video, you said that tourism, leisure, food, retail, and wholesale are included in this. What other industries are included in this? What about, of course, hair salons, tanning salons, chiropractors will be greatly reduced. I'm about to do my first transaction in Allied, in so-and-so. It's a physio in the UK. Should we wait to complete this deal? No, you can start negotiating the price down now. Keep doing transactions even though the UK industry is in lockdown, but will reflect the lower price. Yes. Wait to close lockdown. No, you're not going to wait till lockdown is over. Lockdown may go the rest of the summer. Any additional guidelines on convincing firms to operate on discounted and deferred fee basis given the current? In fact, they have been more readily acceptable. We've had kids that have gone through 3 creator deals that have gone now to new professionals. They realize this is the time for them to build up a trust factor with new potential clients that are going to be serial entrepreneurs. Where does someone store or invest their money, and what does someone do during a period of hyperinflation or high inflation to get a return on investment? I'm not worried about inflation. You know that Sally and I have been in cash. We keep it in 3 to 4 huge banks, the biggest banks in the world, and we rotate between 2 or 3 different currencies. I'm in the dental business and rolled up practices, and now we are in a hot mess. And I heard Mr. Pena in his March 1, day 1 seminar say dental practices are done. Too much pressure from government and state agencies to shut. They're not. Well, they're done. They're not going to be creating money as they used to. I want to navigate and take advantage of this situation, as most of our dental colleagues have taken a back seat. What would Mr. Pena take? I go and see 3 to 5 dental practices a day. How do we adjust our strategies when communicating with sellers during this time? What are some of the points we raise? Just follow the scripts. I've spoken to the banks again, and they inform me that they are very strict in taking on new business due to this period. How do we get through this? As long as the deal is hot, will they finance it? They may or may not. They're probably operating under government guidelines that they should keep existing businesses from going bankrupt. But they will still fund deals. But I'm telling you right now is the time for 100% seller finance. A few months ago, we warmed up the banks in Canada and figured out that the multiples of EBITDA there are comfortable lending using the cash flow business. Now that the situation has changed, should we of course, you got to go back a few months ago. What are you, stupid? How would Mr. Pena navigate this time when potential sellers don't want to meet in person or social? Well, you have to, unfortunately, if you had followed the steps up till now, you have seen a lot of people in person. It's all right to have the 3rd, 4th, or 5th meeting via social distancing using Skype or Zoom, but it will be more difficult. But it's just a numbers game. How to do business in times of imposed quarantine? You have to double your efforts. Aside from healthcare, telco, which industries will be the most resilient, thrive in the next decade post-corona? Well, most are going to be, if not gone. When I say gone forever, if let's just say that restaurants was a $1 trillion business. Restaurants aren't going to be a $1 trillion business anymore, unless they have a takeaway. And you can't, I think, it's hard for me to believe that you can deliver as much food as you can serve in a restaurant. Maybe you can. Maybe you can serve more. But you have to look carefully at the models and where the money's coming from. You have to follow the cash. Do you think we will have a problem with currency collapsing? No. What challenges should we expect as the result of the virus market turndown? Self-doubt. And you know how to get around that. How do you best position myself to take advantage of the benefit of the financial system? I've already said that. As governments will be taking on huge debt to survive, what do you think will come out on top? Well, I believe the U.S. will. Between U.S., EU, China. In the country where there's no financing for acquisitions, Malaysia, I'm verified with my chairman, who was ex-CEO of top 3 bank, and there's no acquisition financing in the country plus months of cold calling. How would you finance a hot deal? Seller finance. Given the current state of affairs, that cash flow target change we consider reasonable as a possible purchase. 50% less than before. Mind you, 2017-19 numbers in cash flow, 20 to 40% profits shown by some, mean nothing today. That's correct. When they're worth 50% less or nothing, and some are worth 0 in the future. Correct. It's a whole new game. What I normally would do, and I've said this before, is I take worse numbers and I'd cut them in half. In your recent QLA seminar on YouTube, you said that the dental practices might get closed. They are closed. What other practices in health? Almost any single proprietorship is closed. My industry is cybersecurity, and it has a limited number of potential targets. Pre-corona, cold calls stats were 50 calls and 10 responses with 4 or 5 potential interests, and 1 or 2 targets proceeded through with providing financials. Now, during corona, the stats for 50 calls are 1 or 2 responses and no potential interest to move to the next step. Since my targets are limited and people in my industry may not be ready to sell during the crisis, should I wait for some time? No. I don't want to burn all the potential targets. By the way, I'm also seeing familiar results via email and LinkedIn. Of course the results are going to be changed. Of course the results are going to be determined. But if you only made 50 fucking phone calls for 5 or 10, I mean, you got to make 500. Remember? You're 2,000 cold calls away from doing a deal. Economic outlook next 1 to 3 years, quick recovery, or like Japanese stagnant price level. It's not going to be as bad as stagnant price level, but it's going to be a slower recovery than we would want. Are mechanical services like plumbing, heating, cooling, and ventilation, fire protection, alarm system a good business to roll up? Well, several of those are considered essential. So the answer would be yes. I have not completed a deal and have KPMG as my accounting firm. My initial plan has to get into my initial plan was to get into residential care bed pans in Australia. My question is really, if this is still the best industry to enter, as now the world is in chaos, would there be better worthy businesses to get into within the healthcare industry? And in terms of deal size, would this be a great opportunity to go bigger? Yes, it's a great honor to go bigger, but some of the money is going to be non-recourse, but if you don't ask, you don't get. How can I prepare myself during this lockdown period to get ready to get in the game? Well, affirmations, goals. In this particular case, you are who you hang around with, so you're not going to be hanging around with anybody, which is good. So just keep me listening to me 24/7, 365. Is HHA home health still a viable business with all the? Yes, it still is. Assuming the following: the majority of the banks, at least in Australia, are asset-based lenders, and given the assets will be worth less. For many businesses with existing loans, this crisis will increase with a loan to value against their assets, and those businesses will suddenly be outside the bank's loan to value policy. The bank's current metrics for lending will become antiquated, and increasing numbers of banks' existing client portfolio will struggle meet their debt repayments. Banks are stopping repayments on request, capitalizing interest and extending the term. However, this can't last and won't be enough to save many businesses. I agree. Do you foresee banks becoming far more cash flow focused in the short term or in the long term? Yes. And less loan to value focused? Yes. Because you can't determine what the real loan to value is without cash flow. Will they favor lending to strong operators and boards that have experience dealing with tough times? Yes. What does that mean for QLAers? How do we take advantage of the bank's position if and when they become cash flow lenders? You've got to be getting in front of as many banks as possible now. During the Black Swan event, should we source and intend buying public? That question has already been asked. What will the long-term effects of virus be in the industry, economic, especially regarding home? It's going to make more people. They're not going to build more homes, so they're going to put less people in fewer homes. So that's going to increase. That's going to decrease their cash flow. So we need stronger homes, cash flow wise. I've got $40 million to spend on buying. I've got about $40 million to spend on buying a warehouse for our business. Should we do this or wait until next year? Start renegotiating the price now. Have healthcare services multiples increased or decreased in Asia Pacific? They have to have decreased. With respect to impact on the virus, decreased. Is the over-exaggerated hype about Corona being encouraged by governments and powerful entities, specifically in order to shift more wealth to the big players? No. If so, no, nobody's benefiting from this. The people in the biggest cash positions are going to be the biggest benefactors. Can we still make money doing deals in industry suffering from COVID? Yes. How can we attract heavyweight candidates for the board of directors when all the attention is focused on coronavirus and economy collapsing? I've got several guys, by the way, since the 1st of March, every week, the QLA bots have closed deals. A couple of kids have closed multiple deals. These deals have been closed in Canada, United States, Germany, the UK, South Africa, during these. And at the same time, these deals have been being closed, people are still adding to their boards of directors, people that are just getting started. Deal structuring. Any adjustments suggested on the 60-40 model? No, other than the 60% was bank finance, 40% was seller finance. But now you would probably you can improve that to where 100% seller finance. Any strategies besides going 100% seller finance? That's the best, without putting money out of your pocket. I never want you to pull out money out of your pocket. If you're working on the board, what can you practice to get better results? More presentations, pendejo. Which market should we focus on in the situation? I already told you. Healthcare, avoid everything that has anything to do remotely with retail. What are the trouble times layers that are needed? There's no extra layers other than more calls. You have to increase your output. Which real estate sector will you have greatest impact? Which real estate sector will have the greatest impact from this recession? Medical office buildings, I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. Retail, I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. Individual residents will probably be the least, other than the kids that own them or are renting them or leasing them are going to have less money to pay their rental payments. I was wondering what Dan would do in this situation. Wait or no, I wouldn't wait. You just keep, pulling the trigger. Outside of the health and artificial intelligence, what other industries do you think will have gains? I've already said that. Okay. All right, kids. This is the second episode of my answering questions from the active mentees. Since the last talk we had, which is about more or less a week ago, although we've had some plateaus in the corona experience, my guesstimate of things happening has not got any better. In fact, in some cases, it's gotten a little worse. I get emails from you kids asking questions that were asked and answered multiple times from the material on the site, from the material that you got in your gigs, and more importantly, should have been answered if they were asked of your board members. It's obvious to me you're not asking your board members. You're not using them. And this is the time that you should be using them in this, because they've been through some tough times before, whereas you may have not been through some tough times. But whether we do it a third time will depend on how the environment goes. But I'm going to say without saying, I didn't enjoy predicting the tsunami, and the tsunami, a financial tsunami, is going to be worse than you thought, and it's going to last longer. And all I can tell you is that plan for the worst and then hope for the best. The numbers that I'm looking at, and I just told a young kid that I happen to be chairman of that next to pass on the deal, whereas his lawyer told him that it was a good deal and we should just defer 60 days, et cetera, and where supposedly the broker said that he had 140 or 145 something other offers, and I told him, well, then fucking let him take it. If people, sellers, especially through brokers, think they're going to get anywhere near the asked for value of their assets today, as opposed to 8 weeks ago, then something's not right with them in their head, and something's not right with you in your head. I would rather you save your powder. Now, if you can make a deal that is subject to what I call a reverse clawback, okay, so you did $1 million and now your revenues are down 50%. Let's do a new purchase price based on the reduced 50% less cash flow. And if it does go back to anywhere near, then you have ratchets where you can, you meaning the seller, can get more higher price. Okay, I'll pontificate a little bit at the end, but that's it for now. Let's start with the questions. What did you do that can be replicated now at Great Western and blah, blah, when oil? Oh God. $8 a barrel to become the fastest growing energy company. Your success was taking into better. What I did was, and I've said it before, and I've told you, when you and I sat in Florida, when you came down to visit me in Florida, that fateful day, and I sat there in the lobby, the foyer of that rich hotel in Miami Beach, I said that I made more calls. The only difference between the QLA then and QLA, or QLA before and QLA now, because QLA now is you got to make more calls. Remember I used to say, I told you that I made between 6 and 8 presentations a day. It's just a matter of volume. It's a matter of output. That's the only difference. Right now, are you looking for business opportunities, especially in virus, healthcare, or in this chaotic business field? No, I'm not. I'm not looking for anything. I'm chairman of 20, 25 companies, and I'm giving sage advice when asked. In addition to banks, credit unions, insurance companies, government, who would you be spending all your time contacting for capital? Same list or is something new? Okay, well, no. Credit unions, banks, insurance companies, credit unions, the government, they're all, but right now there are special funds being set up by the government that you should be chasing after. But it's important to remember, at least in the United States, the government money bailout, or whatever you want to call it, is pointed at existing businesses to keep them from going out of business, not new businesses. So, but they're lending, they're just lending slower. And, you're better off going to a bank that you've had a banking relationship with. How can we continue to contact financial institutions, lawyers, accountants with, closure, social distancing? Electronically, through, the Zoom, through Skype, and through the other different other tools that I'm not as familiar with. What the U.S. classification of industry sectors as essential and non-essential? You got me by the balls. I have no idea. But for example, on this estate, we've got nobody that's essentially essential, although we have 1 or 2 gardeners coming in a couple of days a week to keep the lawns cut. We had a plumber come in to fix something early on. I believe they're considered essential. But pretty much everything else is non-essential. Do you see any issues in terms of raising money from banks based on the huge losses they will be taking in the short term and the tightening of lending requirements? No, but they're going to follow the requirements set down by the government. But at the end of the day, it's mostly all still guaranteed by the government, and if you're persistent, you'll get the money. Are there new paradigms for building fortunes in the chaotic times? No, the old paradigm still works, meaning the old QLA paradigm. Is there any specific industries that were once selling for high multiples but are now willing to take 3 to 5? They're all willing to take less now. They're all willing to take less. Remember, everything is worth between 25 and 50% less than it was at the beginning of this year, and some companies aren't worth anything. And you got to realize that's a really hard pill to swallow for the sellers. They worked 20, 25 years, unlike QLA. They just kept putting the money back in their business, and now they've got no retirement. And remember, wealth is built off of a series of transactions, not one. Yet in their mind, they're still trying to get rich off one transaction. Cycles repeat themselves, and you said if you live long enough, you will see everything again. What do you see happening for the next 2 years? Well, that's about how long it's going to take us. I think that social distancing, and it's going to be better once there's an antidote, once there's a pill you can take. See, once there's a pill you can take, and you know that, when you shake hands and hug and kiss, which I was never for hugging and kissing, if you remember. Now you know why. I say facetiously. But it's going to take at least 1.5 years to 2 years to get back to some semblance of normalcy. They're talking about opening up certain businesses here in Europe. In fact, Austria and a couple others have already done that. Okay? But they're letting half as many people in the markets. Now, the people that are going in the markets right now are buying twice as much, so maybe it doesn't matter that they're only letting half as many people in. But the point is, it's not going to be the same. Are you going to stand in line to go to a baseball game until there's an antidote, until there's some kind of pill or shot you can take? It's just like the flu jabs and the various jabs that my wife here in the UK makes me take yearly, normally for old people, but they're going to have a COVID-19 jab. Okay? And if you don't take it and you get COVID-19, it's tough shit. Health services will be negatively impacted as physicians, nurses, caregivers contract COVID-19. Nursing homes are getting shut down, repurposed as makeshift hospitals. and mortuaries, by the way. How will this impact areas you previously recommended, like the bedpans? There's no place for the elderly to go. What I can see is that the bedpans are still going to be around, and home health is still going to be around. What areas of the healthcare do you predict will remain hot? The ones I just said. How to take direct action in the current situation, step by step. No, I'm not going to give you step by step. The 7 steps still count, and you Swiss dummy. Nothing's changed other than you got to double your output. Now, I got some emails, and I'm ashamed to say I'm chairman of a couple of these guys, and they were complaining about before COVID-19, they had made 50 phone calls, and they got roughly 10% response, cold calls to businesses. Now they're making 50 phone calls, and they're only getting 2 or 3 responses. Yet they're telling them to come back, in 6 months or a year. Well, if you're only making 50 phone calls, and you know who I'm talking to, well then what the fuck? That's why I made when the market was collapsing back in the day, when oil went from $41 a barrel down to 6 or 8, I was making 6 or 8 presentations a day. How long until this corona thing is over, and what is the new normal going to look like, and what opportunities are going to open up that didn't exist before? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But there will be some opportunities, but not necessarily for roll-ups. The same roll-ups. Healthcare is not going away. The bottom third of healthcare is not going away. What's the best place in North America, U.S., Canada, to establish headquarters for cybersecurity consolidation? New York City, the best place? No, I wouldn't say it's New York City. I just noticed who wrote this to me. I'd probably say Washington, D.C. Logistics seem to be one of the highest performing real estate sectors, both before and post COVID-19. And most investors seek to invest in assets such as warehouses, distribution parks. I'm not sure what a distribution park is. Due to this, I believe my biggest challenge would be to find motivated owners who would accept seller financing. Unless you ask, you dipshit, you don't know. How can I overcome this? With some balls. What would be the best way to incentivize these sellers, considering so much capital is aimed toward logistics, real estate investment? Through either the 60-40 model or a ratchet, whereas if they're as successful as you think they are, Mr. Seller, then you should benefit. But if they're not, then I shouldn't be willing, and I'm not willing to pay more than the true value of it is now. The new benchmark, the new leveling, the new bar is COVID-19 bar. Okay, what are they worth during COVID-19? The corona crisis started in China, where I presently live and work, spread to Europe, US, and now remaining in Asia. What is Mr. Pena's prediction on how long it will take for each continent and global economy to overcome the crisis? What are the movements in the political economy? I don't know, but I'm guessing 1.5 to 2 years minimum. And I base that on they're going to have the first testing on humans next year for the virus, the thing that'll fix the virus. So human testing is not going to be overnight. So I say 1.5 to 2 years. Would you invest in MOB? Medical office building in California? No. Trust deeds with strong spreads. Depends what the trust deeds you're in. And you know better than that question, pendejo. Which companies, industries do you see not being impacted by what is going on? And which companies, industries do you see in the eye of the storm? Well, sweetheart, you actually know better than this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. They're all going to be affected. Everything's going to be affected. Some will be affected less. The restaurants without the home delivery aspect are dead. So I would assume all restaurants, as we've seen already in the short few weeks, them go to home delivery. The eye of the storm, mortuaries are hot. It's a shitty thing to say. Cemeteries are hot. Crematoriums are hot. They're burying people in massive open graves in New York. Not just New York, they're also putting them in cold storage here in Europe. Will funding be as readily available for non-business intervention loans to buy companies, or will there be government regulations causing banks to support the economy? They're going to be available, but the keeping companies alive are going to be more readily available, as witnessed in all the news coverage. We've been looking at importing PPE. Already have agreements in place with local government, but delivering this is near impossible. Well, down under where you're from, it shouldn't be, but it's a matter of work. I've told you this before. You got to, double, triple your output. How will lenders value assets in these uncertain times? Cash flow. And that's cash flow that is real, not historical cash flow. What industries provide the greatest opportunities given the aftermath of the crisis, blah, 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 have increased people's movement, have increased surveillance, and public health safety will be a focus. Artificial intelligence is hot. The cybersecurity is hot. There's going to be increased surveillance. I was listening to BBC before I started this broadcast that there's an app now that you can fill in the numbers voluntarily, and when someone that has, assuming they filled in the numbers in the app, that had been corona positive or had corona, your phone rings, so you don't get within 10 feet of them. And that's going to be a lot of fun on a date. At what point do you stop and use spare cash to prop up my own company? Try to get as many loans as you can. I know where you're from. Try to get as many loans as you can from the government, non-recourse loans. And then, before they close the doors, you use your own cash. They say bank are not really loaning any money out to businesses during this crisis. It still holds true for QLA. No, that's not true. How or if does the QLA method change your forecast of the economic downturn? The economic downturn is coming. I agree more or less with the Goldman Sachs guesstimate. The GDP is going to be down about 30+% for this quarter that we're in right now. It could be worse. I don't necessarily agree with their forecast that we should bounce back in the third quarter to 5, 6, 7, 8%. If they're using the second quarter as a base, that's true. But if they're using last year as a base, that's not going to happen. Will the Canadian ever be the same again? Where do you see the price of oil going? I see it going down as I'm filming this. Oil is about $21 a barrel. And that's after OPEC and some consortium of Russia and maybe even the United States. So they cut the oil about 9.5, 10 million barrels. The Saudis say it's equivalent to 12.5 million barrels. But we have about 30 million barrels a day oversupply. And on the news of them cutting oil, 10 million barrels, oil went down $3. That tells you. There's a massive overproduction of hydrocarbons on the planet. I've been saying this since 2014, but nobody listens. Now when, it's like, during the wartime, everybody gets religion when they're in the foxhole. Nobody wants to be in the foxhole alone. So now you listen to QLA more. If you had done what some of you people that have asking these questions have been asking me questions, or I should say, went to the seminar 4 or 5 years ago and haven't done fuck all. Now you expect QLA to come and save you. Well, some of you, it can still save, but many of you are just going to drown. It's too fucking bad. To proceed in transactions, shall we actively talk to potential buyers in these days for acquisitions, or wait some weeks? No, you fucking moron. As maybe many of them will be more trouble so we can buy them. No. You're going to start a conversation. You can close a deal in 72 hours if it's 100% seller finance. The longer you wait, you want them to remember your name 3 weeks from now, not the guy that called them that morning. And that's why you have to keep in strict contact with them so they don't forget you. When is it time to start buying biz and deals again? I mean, now. Patience is not my strength. Yes, we know it. Is it better to buy the bad loans later from the bank? That's another alternative because you have money. Non-performing loans you're talking about. If a vendor is holding to a normal price now, do we bend them and move on or try to change them? No, bend them. You know better than that, you know. How's your athletic career been? If we were looking at 3 to 5 times for valuation before, what would we be looking now? 1 to 3. If it's got cash flow. If it's got no fucking cash flow, then nothing. What guidelines can you provide for a company valuation going forward? You know better than this, you fucking engineer. By the way, how are your kids? How are you doing with your kids? No, it's some fraction of what they were based on, and the purchase price has to be based on it producing that cash flow. Otherwise, you're not paying them. Is it a good idea to start rolling them up? Yes, it is in the next 6 months. How would a market crash affect our capital raising strategy? Get the money any way humanly possible, but any particular sources of capital, the same ones I taught you when you were here, you dipshit. I could use some Italian food when I think some Italian food when I read this guy. View of hospitality industry moving forward, especially restaurants, but hotels. Dismal, I'm afraid to say. But I look forward to Sally and I look forward to coming and having some dinner with you, when we can travel. What are the 2 best sectors offering opportunities that are specifically, and what specifically is the opportunity for each? Still healthcare, and it's still IT, high tech. Remember, if it's not tech or healthcare, short it. Long time no see. Given new corona measures, SBA loans, does it change QLA process, incorporate sooner than later? No, you incorporate when you have a deal. If any better place, in which jurisdictions, currencies, assets, values would you rather be than all others to get more value through the crisis? Stick with a strong currency, stick with the pound, stick with the dollar. The euro, as long as the euro stays and doesn't dissolve. What concessions and contingencies would you negotiate or renegotiate into the deal to account for the negative impact of Corona? In addition to making the seller partnering, a partner buying 60 to 75% of the business versus 75 to 100% of the business, 100% of the seller financing, or seller must be a guarantor. Well, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. If he's so in love with his business, he should be able to guarantee the loan. The seller, that is. What are the economic implications? U.S. and China, everything's going to go down. Everything's going to go down. We are currently raising $100 million finance facility for projects. We have an in principle agreement for $60 million and are working the equity side now. Usually the funders want to some site visits as part of their face-to-face. What arguments or persuasion can we use with them to convince them just to proceed without the physical visit and do any checks virtually instead of so the funding of our facility is not delayed? The only thing I could think of is to have them visit the sites by drones. Currently moving forward in 3 international acquisition dialogues, we generally see competing offers with higher upfront payments from PwC, EY, Deloitte. The sellers stay on board and participate in the equity. Total potential upside is higher than competing offers, and the sellers prefer the like-minded culture approach with us. How can we best present the sellers that we need to accept more earnouts to compensate for the uncertainties? Yes, more earnouts. Any tips for serially applying QLA over multiple industries? The only thing is that we have several guys working on conglomerates now. Conglomerates are selling lesser multiples, and they're not as popular. What's my advice of existing in the business this year? I mean, it's going to be down. I'm not writing off 2020, but there's certain industries that are just dead, and they're going to stay dead. What non-obvious industry do you think would be in high demand the next period and will keep staying that way? There aren't any non-obvious. Everybody is pretty much equal in this corona environment. We'll be getting into oil again. If so, should we? No, I'm not getting into anything. So, but there are funds. There are major funds around the world that manage tens of billions of dollars that say that a fossil fuel is dead. I don't agree with that, at least not in my lifetime. But fossil fuel is a tough nut to crack. And when you go to these companies that are in the fossil fuel business, I mean, they do not believe, they won't allow themselves to believe that fossil fuel is dead. Otherwise, they've wasted 20, 30, 40 years of their life into an industry that's dying. But I certainly don't see the fossil fuels like buggy whips. I certainly don't see fossil fuel currently in the short term or intermediate term like Smith Corona typewriters. Obviously, they don't have buggy whips anymore, and they don't have Smith Corona typewriters. How will the activity and deals evolve immediately post-lockdown and over the next 3 to 5 years? Okay, first of all, there's not going to be any direct, in my judgment, any direct post-lockdown. Lockdown is going to be phased out. And you will be able to see, and what's going to be locked down, unlocked down first? I mean, supermarkets, what we call the essential businesses, but certainly not necessarily movie theaters, not necessarily cruise lines, not necessarily airlines. Some of these businesses are going to be changed forever. Now, I personally think that there should be a shakeup, and I would be more restrictive in government bailouts than the government's being. What is the major difference strategy now versus previously? There is none. It's the same. Will there, other than more output, more calls? Will there still be a future for banks, financial institutions, and stock market? You think that this is a moment that the governments will take over control of the banks? No, that's all bullshit. That's conspiracy theory. You know better than that, even though you're a Dutchman that fucking lives in America now. What to do with valuations in these uncertain times? No, it's the valuations you had before don't mean anything. Okay? And unless you structure the purchase price to what it's going to earn in the next 6 to 36 months, you're wasting your time. If we are in a service-based time and material biz, should we consider looking to pivot into industries where more tangible financial assets? No, what you want to do is you want to be in a business that produces cash flow, irrespective of assets. Do you see any specific obstacles or opportunities for QLA process via the steps? The same steps, just more output. How will lenders look at the recovery timeline? Well, that's a multi-pronged question. The lenders are first of all going to try to get all the money out. This is in America, that the government's guaranteeing first, and their government timeline is going to be based on their own internal numbers. No one is dead just yet, but the CIC executive agreement, changing control agreement, Quite a few have an interest in bailing to save their own personal skin. Okay? Everyone is now interested in their own savior. CIC, that's changing control, always gets top priority at this point. How does Mr. Pena recommend dealing with these agreements when buying from a motivated seller? Well, I mean, changing control is different now. That was the old world. Changing control may mean nothing now. You just have to negotiate harder. Mazel tov, by the way. How would you value the business now as the last 3 years' accounts? I wouldn't. I value it on the next 6 months' accounts, which leads me to believe that there's a couple ways to handle this. Either the close is going to be a slow close, which will probably happen anyway because the banks are going to be very careful, but it's going to be based on the numbers they produce during the environment. And so the whole value proposition has changed. How will the lending situation change in 2021 in the face of financial crisis that will make 2008 look like a tea party? How will it affect the QLA model and financial presentation? It's not going to affect the QLA model whatsoever. I didn't say it's going to make the 2008 look like a tea party, but I do say that the financial tsunami is going to be affect a lot more of the world than we think. It's going to take a lot longer. It's going to cost a lot more. Will any financial institution lend against the target's financials prior to the business closing? Would this be in anticipation for when the business does open? No, it's not likely. We all know that most businesses are worth a lot less due to the pandemic, and their financial outlook is radically different than 30 days ago. If you're in the middle of a deal, what's the best strategy to set a new price when their revenues and profitability is so unstable? And how do you mitigate your downside to zero in case their financial picture gets even worse? You base the purchase price on zero, and it's a percentage of whatever they can generate in cash flow, and that can be the basis of your purchase price. Would it be prudent to invest liquid into assets now and finance at lower rates in the future? I'm not a believer in that methodology. For my dream team in medical, what percentage? It's an interesting question coming from you because you've already got the chairman and all these guys. What percentage of the company do you give the chairman? I take 19. The CFO gets 5 to 10. The CEO gets 8 to 10. Retired attorney, retired accountant, industry experts all get 2 to 3. Is that percentage a percentage of cash flow or equity or both? It's a percentage of the equity of the deal. It's the holding company they get a percentage of. I'm surprised you asked me such a stupid question. What do you predict the world will be looking economically, socially, and politically 10 to 30 years from now? Not anything like we are today. We're not going to have any world economy. We're not going to have any, worldwide politics. It's all the same. But the model has changed. Do you envision banks changing their lending criteria? Best way to address? No. It's still going to be, they're still going to look for some loan to value, which I tell you not to do, and it's still going to be some cash flow times some number, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see the global supply chain altered to play into President Trump's desire to bring manufacturing back into the U.S. and weaken China even more? I don't know. The states could try to target their debt problems through inflation or a currency reform. Would you change anything for us in terms of QLA process? No. Cash flow must cover debt service. No, cash flow must be greater than debt service. And now it's got to be probably 1.75 to 2 times debt service. It is difficult to know the cash flow target. Yeah, I know. Of some businesses, it's even dried up. I understand. In my sector, dental clinics can only perform urgent treatments, which reduces revenue 10 to 30% of original levels approximately, meaning we can only look at the numbers from 2019 in January, February 2020 for our bid. Based on these numbers, Should the discounted cash flow be higher than 2 instead of the original Pena rule? It should be, yes, it should be higher than 2. What do you think is risk of losing available credit? I'm not sure I know who asked me the question, but they're going to be giving you more credit, not taking it away from you. How can I take advantage of the chaos and the big banks go down? They're not going to go down. The big banks are going to go down. What will be the impact of the crisis on assisted living and care homes in the UK and in general? We currently have a care home deal on the table. We're rolling up care homes in the UK. There's going to be more available. Unfortunately, they just found out here in the UK that the death figures have not included care homes. I.e., the example of a couple of weeks ago where 13 people were found dead in a Glasgow care home. The numbers are going to change, but there's probably not going to be as many beds. They're not going to crowd as many people. Now, this is all until they come up with a antibody. I'm saying it's going to take a couple years to come up with that antibody. If that antibody comes out next week, the last quarter of this year could be a turnaround. I just don't believe that's going to happen. You mentioned that banks will still lend, though slower than before. Should commercial banks still be our primary target? Yes. How to deal with banks and getting loans during the downturn? Massive calls. Massive calls. You're an oil man. What is the 5 to 20 year forecast for oil? In my lifetime, I don't see oil going up. In March 2020, somebody you mentioned cybersecurity, crematoriums as viable industry. What other industries? They're the same. There's a good old boy from the South. Wearing a mask to meeting people face to face, seen as responsible or seen as odd. Wear them. Do you think this will lead us to a war? Only in Florida, where it's going to be man against boys, and it's going to be shoot them down in the street like dogs for you and your brother, and where Florida will secede from the Union, and Southern Florida will join Cuba again. Jarhead. I receive emails from bankers letting me know that they are getting guidance from their credit appetite may change as a result of the current coronavirus and the U.S. government permitting small businesses affected by the virus to take out SBA loans. How will this affect QLA? It's a numbers game, Jarhead. In which niche industry within the water industry is now hot regarding motivated self? Now, how the fuck do I know? You're the fucking expert, brain dead. Is there a better subsector in healthcare to be targeting other than nursing homes in the UK given the current crisis? No. In negotiating under these conditions, what's the rule of thumb for reductions? We have a small business that we want to purchase and bolt on to what we are currently doing. The business has not been hurt or lost any revenue due to the current conditions. That's a godsend. What are your thoughts? Well, I'd still reduce the price. I'd still base it on 100% owner finance, but I'd reduce the price. And if it's as good as the seller thinks, then have a bolt-on that you can add more to the purchase price through the revenues. What industries that used to be compatible with QLA model, but after financial tsunami are no longer? There aren't any. How will the above affect sellers in finance and equity? Well, you're going to have seller's finance is not affected 100% seller finance. What is the best way to reevaluate the value of a business and make offers once? Okay, I just cut prices by 50%, but it's got to be tied to what cash flow is going forward. Historical numbers mean nothing. At the seminar, you encourage us to go for profitable and successful businesses for our first few deals. With the current slowdown in the American economy and the possibility of us heading into a recession, we're in a recession. A large majority of the potential businesses will be much less profitable now than they were a year ago. Will these still be considered acquisition candidates even though they are greatly affected by the current slowdown? Yes, they would. Is the recovery really L-shaped? How far down the road? I believe it's going to be L-shaped. It's not going to be V-shaped. It's not going to be U-shaped. I believe it'll be L-shaped. That's why I say a couple years. What banks best to approach now, considering the people? I mean, all banks. Just, you got to double, triple, quadruple your calls. Since I'm especially construction niche generally during these times, and depression is fair to say government tries to artificially stimulate things with infrastructure and building projects. Yes, they will try to. Should we expect to face more or less competition from larger corporations when buying mom and pop business less? What is your view on the real estate market, both residential and commercial? Commercial, I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. Regular family homes is still going to be, there's still going to be a demand. Besides going to all cash, which you have done and I followed, how else are you future proofing? I'm not future proofing or limiting my downside. Cash is good enough for me. What materials should we be prepared for at a successful board meeting? You fucking moron. An Ivy League education. Get your head out of your ass. You've become a hemorrhoid to me. You got all the shit in the gigs, you fucking moron. Just like a Navy swab pig. What does it mean, moving piece, post-COVID? The main moving piece is to have a vaccine. What would Mr. Pena do if he should start again from zero nowadays? I'd go healthcare. What do you expect governments to shift emphasis from controlling the disease to restoring the economy? The cure they are implementing is clearly worse than the disease, but will they realize that, and if so, when? If, in particular, will United and Delta be allowed to enter bankruptcy and be delisted? I don't know. I think they should let the smaller airlines go down. Banks are nervous about acquisition finance at the moment. I have 2 transactions that we have received approval for finance before the national lockdown. With regards to new finance applications, I have been fighting with bankers because they are saying that this time they are focused on assisting existing clients, as I said already, with the payment holidays and debt restructuring. And as such, they are reluctant to lend capital for new acquisitions. How do I overcome this problem? Yes, I'm taking no for an answer. Still, this is becoming a chorus from different financial institutions at the moment. And banks are suddenly not accepting purchase price discounts and vendor finance as equity contributions. They want additional skin in the game. So to speak. The same shit the Dutch East India Company demanded from European settlers in the 1500s. Answer is 100% vendor finance, yes. Establish a relationship with the bridge and mezzanine, yes. Finance institution, work them deal by deal. You're correct. How will the financial tsunami affect the healthcare business in the UK? It's gonna make more people want to sell. Due to the shortage of docs, will Medicare increase rates to attract more docs? I think they should pay docs more. Mr. Pena, during the bull market, you repeatedly boasted that all your cash position and touted that those who weren't liquid would inevitably sustain heavy losses over time. You were right, as that has happened to a lot of people with the outbreak of COVID. Thank you so far. Yeah. Even my Morgan Stanley financial advisor was stunned. Along these lines, amongst which currencies, just pick the strongest ones. I like the pound, the Swiss franc, and the dollar. What industry will go to shit, but eventually will come back? I don't know the ones. Some of the ones that are going to shit will never come back. Predictions are that China will lose a huge amount of export due to the coronavirus. Local businesses are stimulated. Which one do you expect to be the new good local ones? Healthcare again. What are the healthcare verticals post corona? Now just think about this. Masks, gloves, uniforms, special boots, all the apparatus, the ventilators, CPAP machines that can be converted, even the hyperbaric chambers are all ancillary, supplementary, or complementary to the corona. Are you ever not going to, will we wear gloves forever into the supermarkets? I don't know. But for the next period of time, we are. What type of business will you buy right now in Europe? I wouldn't buy anything right now. Keep your cash in your panties, sweetheart. The European Central Bank and the U.S. Reserve are printing money like motherfuckers. Yes, they are. What happens when they continue? They continue or stop? They're not going to stop. They're going to continue. How to evaluate businesses with good results last year. Last year's results don't mean shit. What did they produce in the month of March? What are they going to produce in the month of April? And base the purchase price on that. The way we taught you with a purchase price. What are the possible opportunities in the Middle East after the price of petrol went down? There are plenty opportunities, but not buying from the Middle Eastern countries. It's their supply chain. Long time no hear. I'm still waiting for my documentary. I see huge potential in exponentially growing my roll-up within healthcare because a lot of businesses and financial struggling right now, not being primary healthcare, so revenue is down 75%. However, all my banking contacts are now very keen to keeping money in pockets. Well, you're talking to the wrong bankers. Any thoughts where we can find money? I've told you a million times. Of course, seller finance is a huge option, but keeping things floating might be a challenge. Well, you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. Top industries to take advantage of in countries with social unrest. Healthcare, where many will be laid off and violence, corruption will increase. Move there. Andele, muchachos. How do you think the real estate market will be affected by the current situation? Commercial real estate is down, is going to go down. We're not going to need as many buildings, and the price per square foot will go down. Another pendejo from Chicago. At this state of chaos, will this affect the QLA process regarding getting finance? No. If you triple the calls, but you don't make any calls, pendejo. At the moment, interest rates are record low. Yes, they are. Thank you. And this good factor for us? Yes, it is. It is. But you got to get off your dead Mexican ass. What will America's response be to coronavirus? Well, based on the snowflakes, if it was just up to the snowflakes, the country would roll over and die. But fortunately, there's still enough people in America around the world that aren't snowflakes that are going to fight it and put it to bed. But it's going to take, like I said, 18 months to 3 years. Which industries represent the biggest opportunities for the same thing? Same opportunities are in healthcare. When asked to guarantee a owner's financial deal, what's the best answer? Fuck them, big boy, you animal. Just like when you used to run over them when you were, a star running back. Where are the best sources of capital other than seller finance in this environment? There is no better source than seller finance. Come on, Irish. Wake up. What should I avoid during the recession and chaos? You should avoid being a Ruski. In your opinion, which sectors will survive? They're all, not all, but most are going to survive. But there are going to be 20, 30% that don't survive. For example, now this is a far stretch. Are you ever going to go into a massage parlor again? Are you ever going to go to a chiropractor again? Are you ever going to go to a public swimming pool again? Are you ever going to go to a racetrack again and stand shoulder to shoulder? Are you ever going to stand in line to see a football game? Are you ever going to stand in line to go in a movie theater? I can go on and on. COVID-19, safer at home, has created more babies, and thus 2024 baby boom has been predicted. What opportunities can QLA take advantage? Not dissimilar to all the babies that were born at the end of World War II and after World War II, like myself. You can take advantage of it, but that's all healthcare. That's all healthcare. Nurseries. But are you ever going to want to let your kid go to a nursery now? Are you ever going to want, Montessori learning and all that shit? In the next 2 or 3 years, until we have a vaccine, the answer is no, probably. What will be the greatest source of finance to fund my property and business acquisitions during the downturn? Well, since you don't make any calls, you lazy shit, the seller finance. I see you're a triple barrel name now. Currently, I'm loaded in debt to a bank. My parents and Sally Mae. I started an MBA in January, and I told you about that MBA pendejo, and I have only $55 in my bank. How can I manage my stress so I can focus on a question above? The debt seems unpayable to me. More exercise and pray. Will the rules of the game change completely? No. None of the rules have changed vis-a-vis QLA. It's just you need more output, more calls. How does the discussion with banks go regarding wanting funding? Are they any new thing? No, there's nothing new to add. How long will interest rates stay low? God, I wish I knew. They've stayed low way longer than I ever thought they would. But never underestimate how long you can be. But take advantage while the sun shines, kid. What are the best markets to be looking at to take advantage of this opportunity? Healthcare. Okay. The quasi-genius. How do I modify QLA for during, after Corona? You don't modify it, you moron. Okay. You need to take into account cash flow issue. Listen to the answers to the other questions. I mean, it sounds like you haven't gotten any smarter. Oh, another one from the former Eastern European countries. How's your MBA coming? How to request refinance of loans of interest rates that have been decreased due to Corona. Well, no, if it's for you, it's not refinance. If you've already financed them and you're paying in the last couple of years, you shouldn't have to refinance them just based on interest rate loans. What are we not paying attention to that we should? I tell you sarcastically to get a haircut, but I'm not going to do that. But just follow the steps and triple or quadruple your output. What affirmations would Mr. Pena be saying to himself during these times? I refuse to participate in the down economy. Well, I used to have an affirmation, and it's a good memory, that the board has taken the decision, or I've taken the decision not to participate in this oil depression. But words to that effect. Given the oncoming financial, what do you mean oncoming financial tsunami? It's here. Do you recommend rolling up and invest in a product focused on service focused or service focused companies? Healthcare providing a service. Okay. Would it be better to postpone deals that have a large portion of the transaction commercial bank debt and focus only on the deals that, yes. And the problem is that they'll go away. Well, then it's just next. Let's stick to our deal structure. No, next. Over 8,000 care homes here in California. I'm looking for one. Business only, no property. Correct. 100% seller owner finance, desperate or dying. Correct. Or free cash flow has to service debts serviced by some multiple. I have stuck to these three principles, Mr. P. Admittedly, it has taken longer to find, but it's not impossible. I have my search stuck in higher populated areas, San Diego, Los Angeles County, Orange County, etc. Is it best to continue following up or just follow up there? Another pendejo from Spain. In your latest seminar videos, you mentioned some industries are gone forever. What exactly should we not buy? And you know the answer. The answer is stay in healthcare. Are there specific phrases or lines that should be used to persuade the banks in a unique situation? Will the banks be needing additional reassurances during this time? A collateral or some? No, they're always going to want your personal guarantee. Okay. You have no collateral in this particular person to give them, so what? You have an existing business, which you should be getting money from the loans for your existing business as well. But no, it's the same word. You just have to. In the close, I'm going to go over this, but how many times do I have to tell you? You got to triple your output. Should I go to banks and say if an owner has a good company but don't want to sign personally for a credit line, we buy it from him instead and we're not paying back the debt service and interest rates until the cash flow? You can say that, but the banks, that's the kind of thing you tell a seller for seller finance, not a bank. How do you minimize the risk of the banks coming after you for the debt? Don't sign the guarantee. Do you expect a world war within the next few years? It's funny coming from this guy. Okay, you worried too much about the details that never happened about doing your first deal, and now you're worrying about shit that's not going to happen either. I'm not saying we're not going to have a war, but it's not going to be over Corona. How can we use the time to chaos to our advantage? Remember, you're still only 2,000 calls away from a deal. How should we prioritize our business objectives right now? Seeking new acquisitions, refinancing, building up cash reserve for future. Yes, that's exactly how you do it. Okay, kid. Sectors with biggest opportunities during a time like this, it's healthcare. I'm not sure it's healthcare down in Haiti though. Okay. What are your thoughts on financing of the deal, especially with seller's finance? How can we manage liquidity and the debt service? Is it possible to negotiate clauses like deferral of payment in case of default? Of course it is. There are. You can't. I'm rolling up assisted living and currently working to close my first deal, which went under LOI right before the COVID-19 pandemic hit in the U.S. Here are the terms of the deal. 5 property deal. The first property is $700,000 earn out or blah, 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 blah. What's the fucking question? Originally, the current owner was going to stay in the manager, but now they went away as of last week. Now I have to find a team to manage it. With this in mind, as well as the impact of COVID, how do you think I should restructure the deal? Restructure the deal from scratch. Clean piece of paper. It's not worth what you paid for it here. What opportunities will I have after the coronavirus fiasco is over? What are the industries? Healthcare. At this time, is it better to pursue a QLA strategy of private acquisitions, a QLA government contracts? Government contracts are always good. Post-transaction with these micro physio health firms, how do we go in on premises? You don't. Just come in briefly a few times. You can still look at these things, but you have to have spacing. Sit where the possible in business and do work and calls. Work from home only if needed. You know, I don't believe in buying things that you haven't seen. So to me, that's essential. Any additional guidelines on getting commercial financing in the United States affected by the decline of oil and such as in Oklahoma and Texas and Louisiana? Discounted cash flow should be at least 2 times, if not 3, 4, 5. I agree. Yes, they should be. What business exists? What business to invest or buy when governments are bankrupt? The governments aren't going to go bankrupt. Is it a good time to buy now or better postpone? We're not. You're initiating purchase conversations and negotiations now, and the price will drop the longer COVID-19 lasts. Are there new scripts for the sellers during the chaotic? No. In the immediate next few months, before the potential sellers digest the market is down, how do we make them realize that the market is never going to be as good as it was? It's not your job to convince them. Next. What countries show greater potential to invest? It's not invest. I told you Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Germany, Holland, the UK. Would Mr. Pena still suggest attempt to acquire businesses and now have a 50% drop in top line? Yes, but you're paying 50% less. 10 key QLA life elements to apply during Corona. Just look at the site, you fucking moron. How will it affect the assisted living industry? It's going to affect it where the prices are going down. Do you think big companies will start divesting assets, creating a golden opportunity? Yes, I do. Should aggressive effort being made to contact companies prior to the quarantine ending, or will the shit hit the fan when everybody comes back to work? No, you increase your efforts now. How do we respond, update board members on our thoughts, plans? Well, John, you've done a pretty piss poor job of updating anybody so far. Why start worrying about it now? What must I do to take full advantage of this chaotic economic environment and make a lot of money in the process? Healthcare is still where it is. Mr. Pena, for the next 12 to 24 months, what is your strategy to allocate your assets, say by rough? No, I have no stocks. I have nothing else. I don't do any of that. All I have is cash. I'm currently planning to finance my deal by crowdfunding from private investors through my own and my board network to invest into my deal, exchange, equity, and debt. Can you share some stories or examples of your mentees? Now, crowdfunding is not my thing, although Marcus Bauer, as I said at the one day in London on January 18th, broke the crowdfunding record. He funded his whole deal in 2 minutes and 32 seconds. What are the priority key indicators, steps we need to pay attention to QLA? All the steps. Market capitalization, loans, options given to the country government, relocate the assets, global areas less affected. I'm not going to... Listen, Mr. PhD, you're asking questions that have already been answered. You haven't done a goddamn thing so far, so why don't you put your finger out and just take some action? Make 2,000 calls and you've got a deal done. What is the biggest adjustment that we have to make in QLA methodology due to the current? We have to significantly increase our output of calls. Due to the current situation, is there an industry that you see best opportunity to get in as the owners will be desperate right where you are? Due to COVID, care homes still hot? Yes. What business segments are the best to capitalize on during the pandemic? Healthcare. What would you foresee in terms of changes in getting professional to work on a success fee during this crisis? I've got kids signing up lawyers and accountants today on delayed fees. I've not secured a law firm yet. So just like to put it out there, as there is likely to be a lockdown. You can get lawyers and accountants without seeing them in person. What business sector that I can make deals during this period? Healthcare. Will accountants and lawyers be more desperate for work? Yes. And we've got them signing up right now. Do I have to be a doctor to get into telemedicine business and board of directors? Certain parts of the world, to set up companies, to buy companies from doctors, you have to be doctors. You have to check for yourself. Considering the COVID-19 panic, what is the best course of action in acquiring health business? 4 or 5 times more phone calls than you're making now. Do you foresee banks extending lending during this crisis to existing customers with strong cash flow? Yes. Irrespective, yes. In order to purchase business, yes. But the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You gotta pound them. You've mentioned that banks will still lend, though slower, blah, blah, blah. Should commercial banks? We've answered that question. Okay. I understand you made most of your money in a down market. That's true. 6 continents, blah, blah, blah. Falling out. One, can you compare the contrast to macro? Yes, it's not dissimilar, other than I was just in one industry. I know what it's like. Almost every deal that until towards the end of the falling of oil price, every asset I bought was worth less within a month of me purchasing it because of the dropping oil price. Long-term effects on financial institutions regarding lending parameters. It took the banks 4 or 5 years to get back to their sloppy practices after 2008 and 9. It'll probably take them that long, if not longer, this time around. How long will this downturn last? 18 months to 36 months, I've said that. Are banks still doing cash flow lending in healthcare? Yes. It's not 1.5 times now. They want 2 or 3 times debt service. Are these non-recourse? If you don't ask, you won't get. Or are the banks being more selective and requiring collateral now? No. And John, why aren't you asking your board? How would you persuade a firm that tells you from the start, I just want to let you know from that we don't offer services on a success fee? Then don't talk to them anymore. If they're not going to give you success fee basis, don't talk to them anymore. When I cold call business owners to discuss a potential sale, most are too stressed at the moment to discuss. Do you recommend approaching sellers differently during? No. Hound them. Pound them. Call 10 times more. Which sector industries will benefit most from long-term 5-10 healthcare? Given the ongoing financial chaos, how can we prepare to take on a business with lower profit margin, blah, blah, blah? How can we make sure? Because you're buying them not on historical numbers, you're buying them on future numbers. What is your projection for healthcare assisted living in the United States? It's going to continue to get bigger. Investigate before you invest. What are the hard questions we must be making from now on? Potential sellers. What were your revenues in March 2020? No. What was your cash flow in 2020 as opposed to a year ago? How do you keep the morale up, stay focused when the step becomes a challenge? Well, because you're a muscle-bound cunt, it's harder for you. Man up, you ballless piece of shit, And that goes for everybody on here. I can't believe, I'll say that in the close, I can't believe the lack of manhood that the corona's brought out. How will the banks handle the period of lower revenue during the period of lockdown when they are, because they are going to stress, one, your guarantee, two, they want to get more collateral from which you're not going to give them, but you're going to counter with, the purchase price is going to be based on future revenues, and the only way you can do that is, or the major way you can do that, or the best way you can do that is to seller finance. Will the financial crash be worse than 2008? It's going to be worse in a different way. What are their new facets of opportunities, and what must be avoided considering the deep crisis? There's no new. It's just more calls. Will the current situation diminish sellers' will to carry on? Maybe. To carry paper? Maybe, but it's a numbers game. How are you going to get financing from banks and lockdown continues? You're going to be doing it over the internet. How low percentage do you think the property price will fall? Well, I personally believe commercial property prices are going to fall between 25 and 40%. Okay, now, kids, the 90% of the questions I just answered, you could have asked your boards. You could have asked your outside accountants, your outside lawyers, and didn't need to be asked. But it's obvious from the questions and the emails we get here, you're in a similar panic mode that the motivated sellers are. And how do you man up? Like one of the last questions is, how do you keep not your energy up, but your morale up? Well, I'm worried about that. I watch TV now, and they show how people are having virtual birthday parties, virtual celebrations of Good Friday, Easter Sunday, etc. How the kids can't stand to be alone. How they're having block parties from the windows and balconies of apartments, etc. I can't relate to any of that. It's like I've got a thing newly posted on the webinar. I hate you. What does it take? How many times do I have to fucking say it? I wouldn't piss on your face if you were on fire. Lockdown is great for me. I'm not saying I hope it lasts 10 years, but I don't care, because I know there's still deals to be done, and it's not dissimilar. While we didn't have a lockdown during the great oil collapse of the 80s, we certainly had, nobody wanted to talk to you when they had assets go from $40 to $10 a barrel. But I tripled and quadrupled my output. And again, I say again, you don't want to hear this. That's why I was making 6 to 8 presentations a day. Now you can still make presentations, because now, even though I didn't have the benefit of the internet, I didn't have the benefit of Skype or Zoom and all the other various tools, I had to do it door to door. But now people will take your Skype call. People will take your Google equivalent. People will take a Zoom meeting, because that's the only alternative they have, and they're trying to fill up their days. And they also realize if they don't make some introductions or some preliminary work steps now, and when this is all over in 6 or 18 months and they have to start from scratch, all the people that were utilizing those tools are going to have a head start on them. I still believe that you can't buy assets without boots on the ground. So, I mean, and you can get around in the United States. Essentially, you'd be traveling just 2 people. not a group, but you and one of your board members. I don't believe I'm buying assets that you haven't seen and you haven't actually viewed. And not with a virtual camera like this going through the building. I mean, actually seen. So that will slow things down, but it's not keeping people from doing deals. I got an email late last night. A guy, now this is a guy that didn't come to the seminar. This is a guy that just got the free material online. He did his first healthcare deal here in the UK, £700,000. It's closing now. And he's got another one on the board that'll close in a week or 10 days. And every week since the COVID started, every week since the lockdown started, we have had deals closing and people sending me information. I posted, not all of them, but a lot of them, I posted online. And it's not just self-serving to me. It shows and validates that the kids that are making the effort are still getting deals done. Now, if anything, if you're not double, tripling, or quadrupling your amount of calls, emails, or whatever other mechanism you're using to contact these people, you're living in a dream world. I mean, now's the time. Like I get maybe, just a handful of emails a day. Of course, my emails are delegated out to my staff. But this is the time because nobody's calling them. Nobody is calling other than for the free money from the banks. Nobody's calling anybody about anything. There will be a time when COVID-19 will be a distant memory. But no time in the short term, and in my opinion, no time in the intermediate term. I mean, COVID has changed the way we go to the market, the way we go to restaurants, whether we drive there, whether we have a Skype call there, whether we have a Zoom call there. It was brought to my attention by a cordon bleu chef. You can't have social distancing and be a chef and cooks in a restaurant. How do you do that? I don't know. Okay. With great difficulty. Just as you can't have surgeries without, and try to impose social distancing. There's certain things, above the obvious of face masks, gloves, etc., that are going to change. And in my opinion, the home health, which is when you go to your home, that won't change much. I think there's going to be more home health. But as far as the assisted living is concerned, instead of 4 people in a room, you're going to have 2 people in a room. So that means for a facility that has 40 potential beds, it's only going to have 20 now. So by definition, the numbers are going to go down. So all the valuations these people have of, in my judgment, of the assisted living are fallacious now. That's why you cannot buy these things on past historical cash flows or earnings. You can't. It's impossible. Virtually all industries are being touched. And if I'm anywhere close to being accurate, and I'm following the Goldman Sachs economic model, that the GDP in America is going to be down in this quarter about a third, 34%. I mean, it's going to be awful. It's going to be fucking awful. And that's why I put up the second picture of the tsunami, which is the end of the world picture, because it's going to get to be something like that. The good news and the best news, and maybe the only really truly good news, is the fact that the financial banks, the big banks, not the second tier, third tier, or fourth tier bank, but the big banks are in good financial stead. Now, if this lasts 5 years, even the big banks won't be saved. They can't print enough money. And if they print enough money to save the big banks 5 years from now, then we're going to have not only depression, we're going to have, but the super inflation, and your dollars and pounds and euros won't be worth spit. Now's the time. Remember, I said I was looking for three things. One, we got somebody like Trump. If I was praying to Allah, somebody like Trump, it was going to change the financial system. Two, low interest rates. And interest rates, if anything, are going to get lower, not any higher. And three, some sort of economic calamity. I called it a black swan. I didn't realize it was going to be a corona type thing, but some sort of black swan, where it would shake us to our very fiber, and would make, and really the reason we want that is because we want the motivated sellers to become super motivated. But if we don't take advantage of those three things, then shit, they might as well not have happened. And you're going to wind up in the poorhouse, or if not the poorhouse, not as rich a house as you should be, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Now, none of this benefits me other than I've already reached my goal. Now, the real reason for me not quitting on the 18th of January, as I planned for several months, and as I announced and has been posted on YouTube and other social media, is this, okay? Because I already reached my goal. And, it was a long time coming. It took me 20 years longer than I thought it would, a trillion. But we've already produced 1 million millionaires, and plus, so we're closing in on 2 trillion now. But the point is that the only benefit I have is to keep you in the game and charging towards the goal line, running towards the gunfire, and killing everything, metaphorically speaking. You will kick yourself in the ass for not taking advantage of this. I have people tell me, not in the last year or two, but 5 years ago, that were still around from the big oil collapse that I witnessed. Dan, we thought you were crazy. How did you maintain your resolve? How did you keep your nerve? Just keep running into the gunfire, and borrowing money. Now, if oil had stayed at $5-6 a barrel, what I would have transcended bankruptcy. Because there was virtually no way humanly possible that I could have ever paid back all that fucking money. But I mean, every soldier wants to not be alone in a foxhole. And that's why a lot of guys turn to religion. Well, you've got QLA in the foxhole with you. And if you don't use it, I don't feel sorry for you. This isn't changing my attitude about, familiarity breeds contempt. Poorness rubs off. This is a time for you not to be a pleaser. This is a time for you to get ruthless. This is a time for you to get selfish. To provide your family, you and your family, with the riches I believe you deserve. Now, if you don't, and I'm wrong, and Corona lasts twice as long as I think, and you haven't taken advantage of this opportunity, you're going to be fucked. Big time. You're going to go down the toilet with everybody else. Okay, on that happy note, thank you, meatheads, and go out there, run towards the gunfire, and fucking kill them dead. Thank you. Goodbye now. Hi, kids. It's the... I don't know, for here it's maybe the third week of our lockdown at Guthrie Castle. But there is no time in Shangri-La. I mean, the Cat and EJ here are also locked down from going home to the Philippines. And so it's pretty quiet. I told the March seminar kids that I would, those of you that came to the seminar before the police locked it down, that I would do a webinar or a Zoom call or something after a few weeks. Well, it's been about a month. You've been out there in the real world, and it's the first time I've ever given the information that's on the gigabyte thing without them finishing the seminar. Now, I'm already sorry that I've done it for a couple of you that have fucked up, which we've brought you back into line. But if you haven't been, and you should be listening to my tweets, and you should follow me on Twitter, and you should follow me on LinkedIn. But we are chasing people down that are selling the gigs, a guy from 2018 who we quarantined, not quarantined, that's a Freudian slip, that we found and that we've sent letters, deceased letters. But there's still a lot of people that are selling it. So I haven't asked this before, but when you see people selling my material, or you see people, we'd be appreciative if you contacted our office. The other thing that we're just doing recently is people are using my name, my likeness, whether they went to the seminar or not. And we had I don't know if it's complaint, but we had a comment through Bruce Whipple that one of the accountants that is favorable to QLA in America, last quarter of last year, got 30 requests from mentees saying that approaching them for delayed fees, etc. And none of the 30 came to the seminar. All the 30 were using my name, and so we're cracking down on that, and we're going after them legally. Just because you came to the seminar doesn't mean I'm your chairman. Just so you came to the seminar, and now, especially with your group, there is no mentor program anymore. So if you're telling people that you're on a mentor program, you're lying, and if I find out about it, I'm gonna do something about it. Okay, now questions. Let's get rolling. And again, we just went negative oil yesterday, of which I predicted. In fact, at your seminar, I believe the first day I talked about $5 oil and even negative oil. Okay. Mr. Pena mentioned that he knows exactly what Trump will do next. What will Trump do next coming throughout the pandemic? He's going to, he's very concerned about being reelected. He knows the economy was strong prior to Corona. He knows that we have a good chance of rebounding. And so as of this morning, before I'm taping this, he talked about closing the United States down. But I mean, the United States has the ability that if they open it up now, we could be reinfected. I'm a believer that he should overcompensate, and I would be safe. I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I don't want him to open up too soon. He was caught surprised vis-a-vis negative oil. He tries to make light of it, but it's not a light deal. I'm not talking about light crude. It's not a small deal, and it's simple. Russia and Arabia cut 10 to 12 million barrels out of production. Great. We have an oversupply between 25 and 30 million daily. So that's not much of much respite, is it? And having come from that industry, the oil guys that I knew, both in the Middle East and in the United States, I mean, if they don't drill, they don't sell and find oil, they don't sell oil, and if they don't sell oil, they don't make any money. So it will be very difficult for them to close down production without a government edict. What are Mr. Pena's next 5 business moves? I'm not making any business moves, monkey. I'm following up from yours. What is the lowest hanging fruit to pick during these times? If it's not healthcare and it's not technology, short it. If it's not healthcare and it's not technology, short it. Let's see. Can commercial debt still be used as banks try to just save businesses right now? Yes, of course it can be used. Right now, the SBA is giving guidelines that they would rather save existing businesses than start new business. But we've got guys doing deals left, right, and center so far this week and last week and every week since the Corona pandemic came upon us. We've been closing deals, mostly seller finance, but some with commercial banks. Do I need to make a detailed business? No, you don't need a detailed business plan. Do you let the board, outside accountant, and lawyers and bankers know you will be overfinancing? Of course you do. After listening and studying yours and Bruce's boot camp over and over, still can't get my head wrapped around material. What should I do? I have no advice. If it's not for everybody. I understand affirmations, but still can't come up with one. I just repeat to myself, am I a millionaire? That's not an affirmation. I don't understand the 7 steps. I'm a slow learner. What I should do, what should I do? Just fucking do it. Maybe because English is not my first language, just fucking do it. Can we have a written answers to slides? No, you can't. I gave you the answers. Is the 1st of July confirmed as next seminar date? No, it's not confirmed. I just heard today that the U.S. government is shutting down the country 100%. They're not going to let foreigners back in. I'm sure other countries will do that. It depends if we have a reoccurrence of corona. Or a new outbreak, I should say. Can we have the templates prepared, answers, questions, situation? No, you can't. Potential board members Google fuck me and see that I've had a successful career in an unrelated field and my background has nothing to do with business. Some say they are impressed by my background, but they are confused as to why I'm contacting them about being on board of a private equity style roll-up. This is not private equity style roll-up. It's a roll-up without private equity. There is a disconnect on their side and my side as how to approach potential dream team members, especially starting with getting a chairman. How do I explain to them how I got into doing QLA without having giving some bullshit reason or SOB's story like my passion, blah, 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 and that my brother committed suicide. Well, that's what you're left with. The truth. When in doubt, do the truth. How do I come up with a powerful idea for an industry that a dream team and outside professionals would be excited about being part of? So I'm not just another also ran. When I don't know shit about the industry or what the possibilities are in terms of becoming a dominant force within the industry, I believe you when you say you can become a billionaire without knowing anything. I just don't yet understand how to corral a team. And that's what, you didn't attend the seminar, so you haven't been through all the role plays. You haven't seen. You wanted the material though, didn't you, fucking moron? Morons. Now, many of you don't know what the fuck to do with it. And when you do come to a seminar, most of you will have started and gone down the wrong road, and I'm going to have to rip your deals apart. Post-corona, what industries, verticals? Healthcare. If it's not healthcare, it's not technology, short it. What are the top 5 most lucrative, profitable businesses, especially other than healthcare? There aren't any to roll up in the midst of corona. There aren't any. I'm rolling up struggling resorts. And to roll up in the midst of coronavirus. I'm rolling up struggling resorts and hotels, pick them up super cheap, started with my family resort that has been smashed during and after corona. Favor ones with existing golf courses, beachfront locations, inner city locations, scenic locations, other highly desirable activities that have been hit hard. And of course, age. It's still healthcare and telco. What would you do with a boutique shopping center during the corona? We own blah, blah, blah. That also got smashed with corona. It has a tendency, mix of mainly restaurants and you're fucked. Will you be my chairman? No. I'm going to ask during my one-on-one time with you, however, never got a chance. I've just completed 2 weeks in quarantine, was released 4 days ago, and have since turned in keys on my Airbnb business, removed my time commitments to all other business interests, and will be doing QLA 100 hours a week from Monday the 20th, which was yesterday. Non-stop until I hit 100 million by the end of 2020, and then work relentlessly to hit 50 billion by 2030 and 100 billion by 2040. healthcare and various verticals. I want to acquire. You think I should aim lower? However, to begin with, I want to go after the big ones right away, just like Rick Scott did. Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm sure I'm conflicted, and I still tell you healthcare and telco. You don't want to listen though. Another one, will you be my chairman? Will you be my joint venture partner? No, I'm not going to be your joint venture partner. With you as chairman, it seems like very easy to attract board members. But if I presume the unthinkable and I do not have you as chairman or joint venture partner, can I still? No, you cannot use my fucking name. Especially you. You didn't even go to the course, you fucking shitbag. As to point out that you are I'm not your mentor, asshole. And to show that I've learned from the best. You're following the best program. You have not been at the seminar, so you didn't learn from the best, except for 1.5 days. Successful people like you get tons of ideas on their desk daily. Can you please point out something that can make me stand out a bit from the rest with the initial approach to be my anchor chairman? No, you've got the material. This is why I didn't want to give you the material, morons. I have chosen healthcare as my industry. Initially, I thought that assisted living care homes is a good idea. I'm positive in normal times it is. Watching the way that things are panning out and the death rate in these establishments, I switched to London-based GP practices and small hospitals. Should I go all out and go for bigger London where there are about 10 to 15 high-end established hospitals, or go for the smaller ones? I'd start with smaller ones first, or go with smaller ones, but if there are any subsections, no. You know, healthcare. Regarding the board of directors, I have a pool of people for each position to approach 150. That's great. What are the top industries, the role of healthcare, telco, or tech? How do you sell the bank on the industry that you have been hit hard by Corona? Every business that was for sale, or every deal that's been made since January 1 this year, is worth between 25 and 50% less than the people paid for it. And some are worth zero. Some are worth zero. Without seeing the March and April numbers, you can't bid on businesses. And that's why seller finance is so important. And seller finance tied to a ratchet that if it does produce, they get paid. If it doesn't produce, they get paid very little. Beside board of directors, it's a good idea to have a partner who dedicate part-time in his contact. No. What is the sweet spot for shares for the chairman? Expert and any other board members. How many shares should I offer the chairman? I'm not going to tell you that, moron. Look at the slides. You have the gigs. Could we get a copy of the weekly report? You have a copy of the weekly report. Fucking moron. Should I employ a full-time investigator? Should I outsource to a company? My research suggests that I could get you don't want a full-time investigator now. But will I be fascinated to hear, I will be fascinated to hear Dan's talk about QLA thrives from chaos. Can you talk more about this? It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. I'm not going to go into that. Industry, I have been focusing on one industry since leaving the castle. I've shared with Dan in a previous email, but don't want to share with the group. It is an industry I am passionate about and I believe will impact billions of lives. It is also, however, in the technology sector, so the disadvantages of high valuations and not fully mature boring businesses like Dan likes. The market is large and tremendous potential and is COVID-19 resilient. Is this good enough to take to the high valuation and not fully mature market risk? Or should I follow the methodology? Follow the methodology, mom and pop. Choosing location to start, I will move away from my home country so I can fully focus on implementing QLA. Should I rather move to proven QLA markets, USA, UK, Singapore, as these have higher ease of doing business and the capital infrastructure or move to more difficult emerging markets, Vietnam, South Africa, with first mover advantages and gain. We have people doing it successful in South Africa and less successful in Vietnam. First targets in the template, Tony Kwong, as an ex-banker, says, coming from my background, if I were to do the deals, I want to do big deals, spend the same amount of time. He is targeting hospitals, 75 to 150 million. Do you agree? He was able to do that because of his background. He was a good financial M&A guy. You're not. You're a fucking monkey with a 2 IQ. Just as Rick Scott was a sophisticated M&A guy. If you're a sophisticated M&A guys, go for the moon. But most of you aren't, so you're going to do mom and pop deals. Or is this a typical mistake being made when people are not following QLA process? Yes, it is. It's a typical mistake. Can the in-house accountant also be a retired CFO from an industry, or must it necessarily be a retired auditing partner? No, he could be a retired CFO. No, he should be, blah, blah, blah. Yes, he can be retired. Okay. Should I preemptively include a CEO with the board or wait and get one of the first acquisition? It depends. It depends. Mom and pop, you're not going to find a CEO. Potential, maybe your fourth or fifth acquisition you will. The pest extermination industry is a low barrier to entry, requiring a license which can be obtained in 25 hours of study, a leased utility vehicle, $5,000 in equipment and chemicals. The industry, however, is fragmented, and with the exception of a Flick now owned by blah 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 company and Rentokil from the UK, the business owners are predominantly uneducated, unambitious, and small-minded. I have originally grown to be in the top 3 of my geographic areas in 2 years. Having 4 trucks on the road, I can replicate and grow very quickly within my geographic area. I am currently struggling to find a reason to buy competitors, as the majority of the work is not contracted, other than a database. They have little to offer. Have you seen other low barrier to entry businesses successful in the QLA model? If so, what type of businesses? I told you, crematoriums, funeral parlors, etc. The 2 main competitors I have mentioned in the above question are also involved in hygiene, sanitary disposal service. Of course, with the current economic situation and because of the dependence on other businesses for revenue, restaurants, movie theaters, offices, this part of the business is not of any value whatsoever. Cleaning businesses, too, are heavily reliant on commercial work. These businesses may be on the verge of collapsing, if not already. Have you seen other businesses that have combined services to make more money with greater efficiency and succeed? Yes, I have. What strategy would you suggest? Well, you named one: cleaning service with guard service. Cleaning service with guard service with outside maintenance. After you retired, you had 2 characters come live with you. Characters. Oh yeah, mentees. To be close to the QLA source who fucked off to be in bloody show business, man plans and God laughs. Did any of these assholes who fucked off into showbiz become anything? No. But you're not talking about Ducey, Mikey Ducey. He never came to live with me. Are they now world famous fucking Clint Eastwood level actor? No, they're not. If so, how have they used QLA? They haven't. They failed. They failed because they weren't good actors. Respectfully, I know that you come from a seriously high level hardcore background, CIA, assassinations, OCS, stories of people gone missing, etc. But there is something more to the story. You have avoided trouble, managed to not push the powers to be too much, and know where the line is. No, okay, I'm going to read it out. No doubt, instinct, sixth sense, learned from your father. I can understand this personally, but how to manage not to piss off people at the top when you're starting out, more rich and powerful, and can fuck you if you seem arrogant, confrontational, boastful, overconfident, cocksure. Sometimes I have suffered from people seeing me as too high status and wanting to knock me down to size. In business life, from their own jealous, non-high performance, they're also powerful. No, I didn't experience any of that. I've always been the same, as you would call it, arrogant, confrontational, boastful, overconfident, cocky. I mean, that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. Do you think Donald Trump or Elon Musk have changed? Can you describe how to take an option out on the stock in the 80s? No, I'm not going to explain. I'm not going to explain. You can't take an option public anymore. Don't waste your time. I'm having a tough time finding a chairman. I have spoke to a bunch of people. I have 3 people that have 38 years of experience running hospitals, and they have agreed to be on the board, but don't want to be chair position. I know I just need to keep pushing forward. Do you have any thoughts? I'm going to say it in the close, but you got to triple your output. Will you become my chairman? No, thank you. Can you have both, or do you need both anytime, a board of directors and a board of advisors? You only need a board of directors, a board of advisors, for those who don't want to take the liability, direct liability of being a shareholder in the company as a director. In light of the lockdown and likely prolonged social distancing measures, do you think that making presentations to bankers for finance over the phone will be sufficient? Skype, initial phone call, well, it's either email, phone call, email, or phone call, email, phone call. But now they're going to be few or far between meetings, so it's got to be Skype or some tool like Skype, like Zoom. Obviously, there will be a lot of companies that will be struggling through this period, which present a lot of opportunities for QLA acquisition. Do you have any suggestions how to identify those? Yep. Healthcare, the lower end of healthcare, and technology. In setting up the board members, does the chairman need to have M&A experience? Yes. Or should they be suitable if they had a significant experience in organic growth? M&A is better, but better for both. How long till we see a recovery in the economy? I believe 18 months to 24 months, and back to some normalcy, maybe 2 to 3 years, and we may be in masks forever. Will we see depression, or would Trump change the tide? We may see a depression. How will the coming election affect the current climate? It's not. To research and understand better the health sector, are there any source of information? No. On LinkedIn, my CV is not as strong as and seasoned as potential board members. How do I overcome this? Well, since you're a woman, why don't you grow some balls? It's important to keep board separate from each other, but keep them in the loop vis-a-vis information. Walter, okay. Post-COVID-19, what are the top 3 industries? Healthcare, there aren't 3. And will we see, what one are we never going to see again? Well, you're going to see some form of cruise shipping, but it's not going to be anything like it is now. What are your thoughts on manufacturing in the U.S.? Any particular goods? No. Healthcare. If it's not healthcare or tech, short it. Board of directors, what does this relationship look like? Equity and expectations. I set with them. What are the expectations I set with them? Full-time, part-time. It's all online, kids. Remember, non-executive director versus executive director. Your opinion on what kind of MO real estate would you invest? I'm not sure what that means. stock exchange funds of commercial office. I wouldn't invest in any kind of real estate. Commercial real estate is dead for a while. How do you apply QLA on real estate? Invest model become a business. It seems to be healthcare, technology. In real estate, do I need a board of directors? Yes, you do. You need everything. Okay, kids. I would highly recommend that you at least triple your output. Remember, you've seen on previous emails, excuse me, not emails, you've seen on previous YouTube postings dating back years, I used to give 6 to 8 presentations a day in Manhattan. One of the reasons I made 6 to 8 presentations a day, and some of those presentations lasted 5 minutes, some lasted 5 seconds, some lasted 30 minutes, was because the oil market was collapsing. Just as today, the acquisitions I made when oil was $40, $41 a barrel were not worth what we paid for them when oil went to $20 a barrel. The same is true today. No asset that is a deal that's been done this calendar year is worth what you paid for it, unless you just made it in the last few weeks like some of the kids did. We've got a Canadian kid, 34 years old, who came to the July seminar last year, who I talked about, and you didn't really have time to see the webinars of, but you've heard me talk about him. He's from Toronto. He just completed his 5th acquisition about 2 weeks ago during the corona. So far within 9 months or so, he's created $4 million in EBITDA. And before his year is up in July, he should add another $1 million in EBITDA, or $5 million in EBITDA. You put a value on it. Is it worth 10 times EBITDA, or 15 times EBITDA, or 20 times EBITDA? Because he's in the techie, I would imagine that he's probably at the 15 times EBITDA. So 4 times 15 is 60 million. Call it 50 million. He's created in value from scratch. We have, I just opened an email this morning, a kid in New York, which he's in Corona Central, Manhattan. He just added an acquisition to, vertical to his, healthcare, first couple acquisitions. He was at the Hard Core in November. He completely pivoted from his, education background and into healthcare. He looked at a couple other things before he finally ultimately ended up in healthcare. We're getting a lot of emails. We're getting a lot of requests. We got a tentative request to go on CNBC and explain to them how I knew negative oil was coming. And in fact, at your seminar, in the first day, I talked about $5 oil, and you all kind of chuckled. And then I said negative oil. Of course, here we are with negative oil for the month ending today. I believe it was yesterday. It's going to get a lot worse. When you think about oil or derivatives of oil, or things that are complementary, supplementary, that oil is supplementary, complementary, to is endless. Virtually everything you look around the room here, I see plastic, I see rubber, I see all kinds of things that oil has to do with, and even though the next month's contracts are just broke below $20 a barrel, that's still a huge drop, and it's simple supply and demand. I can't be the only guy that knows that 30 million barrels a day, between 25 and 30 million barrels a day, overproduction worldwide is not good. And I first predicted it in 2014. OPEC and a few others came together. But the glut in the oil situation now happened because, one, we have massive oversupply. Two, we have the use of oil, not just because of Corona, because we're not traveling, etc., but is massively reduced. And the OPEC, the world bodies, are not as powerful as they once were vis-a-vis controlling the price of oil. Now, we brought on the oversupply with fracking in northern United States and in parts of Canada. We brought on the oversupply because, having been an oil guy many years ago, decades ago, all you know and all you learn is rotate to the right. That's the way the drill bit goes, and to produce. Rarely do you ever get oil guys that are willing to shut in. Now, one of the reasons that the difficulty with shutting in oil is it's very, very expensive to shut in a well, even temporarily. And and nowhere are any of the numbers really showing what a true shut-in of oil would be. Another stat that's important for you guys to understand, the Federal Reserve in America, for those of you Americans, and it really overlaps to other countries, they say there's going to be a $25 billion loss per day because of Corona. Well, I guesstimate there's going to be probably at least a $10 billion a day in addition to the 25 lost to lack of productivity. Because if you think working from home, and if you think productivity is the same without accountability face to face, you're living in a dream world. You're living in a dream world. Even though things are going to get worse before they get better, and I know you're all concerned when you're going to get to come to the seminar. It may be in July, it may not be. But then again, when we pick a date, and the date's going to be based on the availability vis-a-vis countries unlocking down, you may not be able to make it. So the chances of all you being in one event are pretty slim. But I will honor my what I said, that you're going to come to a seminar. If you can't come to a seminar for a year, I'll think about maybe not honoring it, but I'm sure we'll get some seminars off in the next year. People will take meetings now on the phone. It's easier to get by the secretaries and assistants, the gatekeepers now. It's pretty easy to get a Zoom and a Skype meeting. So far, touch wood, we have had very positive responses from the big accountants and the big lawyers in relationship to them agreeing to delayed fees. But if you've only made 50 phone calls, you got to at least triple your output. I still go by, you're 2,000 phone calls away from a deal, and everybody that does a deal based on the formula is pretty much a short millionaire off the first deal. And that's why we say the first deal should be $1 million, $1.5 million, the second deal $1.5 million to 2 or 3, the next deal, et cetera, et cetera. So by the time you've done 5 deals, you have acquired equity, you accumulated equity in your portion of the portfolio. We have at least 2 kids, apparently, that are going to wind up being billionaires vis-a-vis government contracts because of Corona. As I get more information and verify that information, I'll pass it along. But we have two guys in the hunt that are doing not dissimilar to I did, many years ago when I got government contracts to supply jet fuel to the federal government, to the Defense Fuel Center. It is a big deal that oil went negative. We're not going to do away with 15, 20 million barrels of oversupply overnight. And just as 10,000 energy companies went out of business when oil went from 41-ish to 5 or 6-ish, many more energy companies are going to go out of business than 10,000 when I was there. And I never thought I'd see, and I wrote this before it went negative, when it got down to $5 oil, and they said it's the lowest price since 1986, $5 oil. Of course, I was in the hunt in 1986, $5 oil. I would listen to my post which was my closing remarks of 2 or 2.5 minutes, to the active QLA mentees that I gave. I didn't post the whole. I did a similar Q&A for them, but yours is just separate. But I would go back and I would look at that post because it's very accurate. You'll kick yourself in the ass. We're closing deals almost every day. I look forward to seeing you at a seminar. So far, the questions you asked were more or less legitimate because you haven't heard. But when you go through the gigs and you go through the website and you go through all the material, every question on this little question Q&A session was answered. Every single one. Okay, kids, I want you to run towards the gunfire and kill everybody metaphorically to your quantum leap.